Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Хотите жить – бегите. Хотите жить – сдавайтесь в плен. Россия не получит новую территорию Украины. Россия присоединит себя к той катастрофе, которую она принесла на оккупированную территорию нашей страны. Оккупант заполняет могилами захваченную территорию Украины. И все больше могил на территории самой России. Ценой того, что один человек в России хочет продолжать эту войну, кто хочет войны больше, чем жизнь. Ваши жизни, граждане России.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 549 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And of course, we have very big news today. And also, we're finally well rested. Thank goodness.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And I don't mean to be hype every single day of the week at this point, like over the top. But why the hell not? Because the Ukrainians advanced 2 whole miles today in the southern front, and from what we're hearing, the rumor has it, the Russians have already been pushed back to the Surovikin line as of right now. They have lost Novoprokopivka. That's the rumor, at least. And we're going to be going over all of the news and video footage that we have, but according to preliminary reports that are coming out from the area, the Ukrainians have already either pushed into Novoprokopivka or have taken it entirely, and the Russian forces are currently in retreat or have retreated to the area of Ilchinkovye and Solotka Balka. But moving on from just the major announcement in that area, we're going to be moving on down into the front lines, and from what we are seeing today, things are looking incredible in this area. Way earlier on in the day, around the times when the short summary came out, the only info we had was that the Ukrainians had advanced around 2 miles forward south of Robotyne and were now pushing well past where the Surovikin line was surrounding Verbove, and were moving to outflank Novoprokopivka. That was shown on a frontline update map today that was quoted by the Institute for the Study of War, and this is the area we're looking at right here. This bulge in the line that the Ukrainians have punched through is about 2 miles deep and around a half-mile wide. That seems like a somewhat smaller area. It's around 2 square miles, but that is a massive advance, especially considering that we've only been seeing several 100-meter advances up until this point, or several 100 yards up until this point in each advance. An advance of 2 whole miles is showing that Russian lines have collapsed in this area and are currently in a state of complete disarray and are most likely trying to regroup on the Surovikin line that surrounds the village of Verbove. We can see Verbove highlighted on this map right over here to the right side, and we can also see that this map goes into a very high amount of detail on where the Surovikin line is, and we can actually see it right here. There are these 3 lines, and you can see a couple of triangles put onto them every once in a while, and those are supposed to denote some kind of a pillbox or a bunker or something similar. But we can see that Ukrainian forces, of course, have already made contact with the Surovikin line near to the western side of Verbove, and they're currently advancing to outflank Novoprokopivka, but it appears that this breakthrough does not have an intention, at least at this point of the day, of attempting to hit the Surovikin line or break through it. It's more so attempting to push the Russians out of Novoprokopivka. We can see that the Russians, according to this map, did create some kind of ad hoc defensive positions to strengthen that weakened part of the village. And when we go to that area, we can see why they did do something like that. Novoprokopivka is a very, very weak defensive position as far as the terrain goes and as far as the village layout is as well. There is only one major highway intersecting it. This is the only road that reinforcements can come into Novoprokopivka from. The rest of this is just open fields, and of course, with the Rasputitsa setting in, there isn't going to be much chance of them getting any reinforcements in through the fields, just driving them across it. And also, continued road traffic through some areas can create many Rasputitsas where the roads become slush just due to the road traffic. But it's a very tough position, not just because of that, but because of the small little village outcropping right up here in this part. It is almost completely separate, but still conjoined to the village at the same time. It is a terrible position because the Russians, if they try to defend this, can't really expect reinforcements to easily be brought up from the core of the village to this northern end, meaning that it will be very hard to keep this defensive position alive once it reaches initial contact with the Ukrainian forces. And even then, if they want to retreat, the losses will also be fairly high as well, because they'll have to retreat through this tiny corridor right here, and I have to continuously outline this over and over because this is going to become very important today. If they retreat from this northern end of the village, there is this one small corridor where there are some buildings that they would have to move through to try and make sure that they don't expose themselves to Ukrainian fire too much. And that, of course, makes them an easy target for the artillery at that point, because it's such a small channel that they can pass to the northern and southern side of the villages that the artillery will probably already be pre-dialed, so that way if the Ukrainians see a squad moving into that area, they'll just call in the artillery, and the artillery will get to work clearing them on out. So overall, this is a very bad defensive position for the Russians, just from the way the village is laid out, and we can see that they have attempted some kind of fortifications right near that northern end. In fact, it actually looks like they're a little bit farther up. It looks like they're about up here on the map. And it's very hard to tell. We can see the bend of the highway right there through Novoprokopivka. And so basing it off of that, those defensive lines were about halfway in this field right here. And from what we're already seeing, at least at this point tonight, those positions have most likely already been overrun by Ukrainian forces. And so they're not giving the Russians any help in holding the northern end of Novoprokopivka. Moving on from that, we also got to see a picture taken by satellite of what the defensive lines of the Surovikin positions look like in this area. And to back it up for a quick second, we can actually see the Surovikin line down here, and we don't know exactly what satellite, what area this is in the satellite picture. They do have coordinates for it, however, but I haven't been able to type those in yet. But this is going to be assumed to be the prototypical layout of the Surovikin line. And we got a lot of interesting info from this picture that you can't really see any other way that tells us that the Surovikin line is probably not going to be as formidable as we thought it was. I would have to be honest with y'all, at this point, it appears that village fighting over a place like Robotyne is probably going to be a lot more difficult than overrunning the Surovikin line. Because while it seems formidable, when you look at it, it's probably one of the most half-assed attempts at a major defensive line that we've ever seen. It has one anti-tank ditch, one row, well, actually one row, or more so, one field of dragon's teeth, or devil's teeth, as it's being called in this picture, and then finally, the primary defensive trench. And from what we've been able to tell, and I've tried to look at other satellite photos today of the Surovikin line, while they're calling it the primary defensive trench, in this picture, it is the only defensive trench for most of the defensive network, the 70 miles that it exists in. They only have one trench. Why is that a big deal? Well, because the anti-tank ditch and the Devil's Teeth don't really pose much of a threat to Ukrainian advances if this position isn't being manned with infantry, anti-tank weapons, armor that will create killing fields and ensure that the Ukrainians can never really make it close to the anti-tank ditch and the Dragon's Teeth without taking significant losses. With only one trench, the problem exists for the Russians in this form. You've put some troops in there, maybe like, let's just say 100 guys for this length of trench. And they have cornets, or maybe 2 cornets, anti-tank weapons, and maybe some man-pads spread out amongst them. We're talking like a Spetsnaz level company at that point, because most Russian units don't have that kind of heavy equipment. But let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that they do. Well, this is then what's going to happen. The Ukrainians advance onto the position, they get fired on by the cornets, the Ukrainians will then retreat, and they'll call in the artillery. The Ukrainians going up against the Surovikin line will most likely use precision-guided weaponry like the M982 Excalibur, fired from 155mm artillery pieces, to directly hit that defensive line and start to wear down the Russian forces or keep their heads low. And then that's where the problem comes in. How in the world do you get reinforcements up to these guys? And there really is no way to do it. You see, with World War I defensive positions, somewhat similar to this, or even World War II defensive positions like the Maginot Line or the Siegfried Line, there were usually multiple trenches for defense. And a lot of those trenches were just holding the reserves. So that way, when these guys in the primary trench got worn down, that unit could be replaced with a fresh one that had the same amount of equipment as the first one and also more manpower, considering that there will obviously be losses at that point. You can't do that with this defensive line, though. There's only one trench. If you want to move up reinforcements, those reinforcements are going to have to advance over open ground to that trench. The armored tanks and armored personnel carriers are going to be completely exposed to the open air and, of course, enemy fire, Ukrainian fire. And once they make it to that trench, the infantry will then have to disembark and make their way into that one trench. And that's going to be the entire process to get reinforcements up there. It is truly an impossible objective once this defensive line comes under any kind of contact. That cannot happen. Reinforcements will no longer be possible, meaning that this line is only as good as the amount of time that the soldiers will last in that primary defensive trench. Beyond that, they are screwed, and this defensive line doesn't really pose that much of a danger. Once these Russian forces were largely wiped out, or their forces were attrited so heavily that they were not able to conduct a proper defense anymore, Ukrainian engineering vehicles could just cover up an anti-tank ditch with a bridge, or they could fill it in, and then they could also begin to remove the Dragon's Teeth as well. Of course, that still makes them a little bit of a target for the more inaccurate Russian artillery like the Mista B or a D-20 or a D-30, but that artillery fire is usually inaccurate enough that if there are no infantry present and it's just heavy engineering vehicles, it probably wouldn't pose that much of a threat to them, and they could continue on their work, although they will be under fire. So all in all, the Surovikin line is not looking to be as formidable of a defensive position as a lot of people have been making it out to be, and I would expect that we're probably going to see the Ukrainians make contact with this defensive line. It'll probably last less than a week or up to a week, and then by that point, the effectiveness of the defensive line will be completely lost. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little update on the line and into the overall look at the front lines as well, because the front line conditions in the south are clearly becoming worse. Of course, we saw the breakthrough today, but we're getting an overall overview here of the Surovikin line and all of the defensive positions that have been seen on satellite footage and have been cataloged by the Ukrainian forces. And we can see that there was actually, and this wasn't really talked about much, there was actually a first line of defense for the Surovikin line north of Robotyne that the Ukrainians have already made it through. Nobody really talked about that much, but it is showing that the Ukrainians have already punched through a defensive line, and this is the second defensive position in the Surovikin line. This one right here, this weird little one that I'm moving my mouse cursor over, is technically the third defensive line, and y'all can see that the third defensive line is so ad hoc and in some places doesn't even exist that it's going to be the least formidable of the defensive lines. And not only that, it is also incredibly weak from its outset due to its design. All the satellite pictures we've gotten of it shows that it's maybe one primary defensive trench, and that's about it. It doesn't have Dragon's Teeth or anti-tank ditches for most of its length, so it will be the weakest of them all. But still, things are looking very bad for the Russians, very good for the Ukrainians, and as the day went on, it wasn't just that 2-mile breach that was made. It appears that the Ukrainians have advanced well beyond that and have maybe even made it to Ilchinkove as of right now. Of course, operational security reasons mean that we will not know that information for sure until tomorrow, but it's become quite clear by a lot of Ukrainians on the ground. Massive advances have been made today, and the Ukrainians have also taken a large amount of prisoners in this area because of that. Moving on into one clip that is showing that the Ukrainians are now probably assaulting the Novoprokopivka area directly, we can actually see that Ukrainian artillery is being brought against the Surovikin line south of Novoprokopivka, and they're hitting it. Why is that a big deal? The Surovikin line has been within range of artillery this entire time. The Ukrainians really rarely use frontline artillery on rear line targets unless they have some kind of a logistical, command, or communications aspect to it that is important to the battalion or brigade level of operations for the Russian army. So using artillery miles behind the line is usually rare unless if it deserves it. This position right here doesn't really deserve that kind of attention from Ukrainian artillery, and yet it's getting it. And this is indicating that Ukrainian forces are not that far away from the Surovikin line south of Novoprokopivka, and are showing that they most likely have taken Novoprokopivka already. And so we can see in the video clip here, the Ukrainian drone is spotting some Russian equipment around this part of the line, and we can see the artillery coming in and already hitting it pretty hard, actually. When you see the Russians running for the hills, dude, they hit the trench, and the Russians went, "What's safer, the trench or the open?" And one of them said, "I say the open ground!" And he started running, and the whole squad went with him. Look, here they come.
At this point, they're probably better off in the open than they are in the trenches. They're just like fish in a barrel in the trench.
Yeah, they really are. It's just becoming horrendous for the Russians in this area. And we can see them running for what appears to be a supply truck or a fuel truck, and we can see another round hit the squad as they're moving back. And oh my lord, that was some amazing thinking on the Ukrainians. The rounds are most likely taking a good bit to reach this area, and so they called in the first shot to hit the trench, and apparently the Ukrainians had already expected that this squad would run for it as soon as that line got hit. And so as soon as they started to run southwards, most likely towards Ilchinkove, they already had another round on its way to hit that squad in their retreat. So we can see it hitting them again right there, and that was some freaking amazing foresight right there. What the hell did they have, a crystal ball? Like the Ukrainian artillerist, man, he sat there and said, "Call in another one back there," and they went, "Why? Believe me, trust me, it will be worthwhile." And then they just hit the whole squad right there. But it appears that some
believe
of
me, Blyat, believe me, please.
Believe me, man, it will work. And now we can see the stragglers just watched half of the squad get disintegrated, and they're like, "Oh my god." Dude, the Ukrainian artillerist that is commanding this piece, I don't know what he's on, but apparently he's on some kind of drugs that lets you look into the future, because after that round hit the field, the squad went, "Oh, bleh, run for the trees!" And then he had one pre-dialed into the tree line that also hit the rest of the stragglers that ran in there. Like, what the hell? This guy just knows. This has got to be the most intelligent artillerist ever seen in war to be calling in the shots like that. And he even hit ammo. Like, I don't know where he saw that. And now they're hitting the supply truck as well, completely stopping any of the survivors at that point from leaving. This guy was living on another plane of existence right here, calling in these shots. I don't even know how he knew where that squad would be at those times, because this happened over about 40 seconds of time. Those rounds are most likely flying through the air for maybe 2 minutes, maybe even longer than that, depending on how far away the artillery piece is. And so this guy called in all of these shots at the proper sequence of time, 2 minutes before everything happened, to not only hit the squad and cause them to rout, but to hit them and wipe out half of them, and then to hit them once they moved in the tree line, wiping out the other half, and then maybe the 1 or 2 people that survived this, they then hit the truck so that way they still couldn't leave as well. I mean, someone needs to call an admin, because this guy is hacking or something, because there's no way in hell you should know this kind of stuff. But with that, let's see in that clip, and we can see that the Ukrainian artillerists are literally using a crystal ball or a magic 8-ball or something to call in these shots at this point to make sure that they wipe out Russian forces effectively. We also got a clip from Surovikin showing that Russian artillery was being counter-batteried in this area today as well, and it appears that the Ukrainians were very successful as they wiped out a D-30 that was attached to a battery. But you can see it getting hit again in another explosion emanating from the artillery piece and the ammunition nearby. And of course, the Russians are going to be getting less and less artillery support as more of their frontline artillery is being destroyed. It'll take a while for reinforcements to be brought up from the rear if they even arrive. We can also see some thick black smoke as well, showing us that the supply truck or the transport truck, most likely a Ural or a Zil, was also hit and is now burning as well. Absolutely amazing stuff. And the Ukrainians are really going to work here. And so hopefully we'll see that Ukrainian forces are actually taking Novoprokopivka as of today, and tomorrow when we cover the news on the Sunday fundraiser, they will hopefully be fighting at Ilchinkove and on the Surovikin line, which is directly in between Ilchinkove and Surovikin. In the meantime, the Ukrainians have apparently pushed the Russians out so quickly from Robotyne that they're actually having to go through and clean up. And I mean, call this cleanup on aisle 3, because these guys are going around finding the remaining Russian cells of soldiers that are still within the town and refusing to surrender that apparently were left behind, and they're wiping them out with house-to-house attacks. We got some drone footage of this today with some kind of an apple creature wearing a Ukrainian officer's hat down there at the bottom, and it says, General Sherosh.
You know, believe it or not, that's actually not an apple. I was told yesterday that's actually a cherry, and that's what was on top of the HIMARS too. And it's supposed to be a cherry on top.
Cherushin. That must be the
That changes the whole situation.
Yeah, that must be the Ukrainian name for cherry. So it's General Cherry down here. They're apparently getting a new mascot. It's honestly kind of cool. And dude, that thing is rocking a Stalin stash, dude.
Man, I'm telling you, it looks like something that would come out of like Studio Ghibli, like in one of those like
Yeah, it
anime
does,
type
doesn't
films.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you go up to General Cherry and say, sir, they're taking 2 miles of ground. He goes, Suka, блядь, пиздец, иди нахуй. Only 2 miles, take 5, блядь. Take him to Gulag. But anyways. We can hear some good music there, and we're going to have to mute that because I'm very sure that's copyrighted. But we can see the Ukrainians have found a house filled with Russian soldiers that are still inside of Robotyne. They're going to be clearing them out. They'll lob a grenade in there, wait for a moment, the grenade will explode. And there we go, Russians subtracted. It's a simple equation.
Almost.
Add a grenade, Russians subtract. We now see him. What the hell was that? So he's dropping... Oh, wait a minute. Dude, this guy dropped that bomb. I don't know what that is. It's some kind of like a satchel, it looks like, or something. He dropped that thing in there like he was dropping trash off in a trash can. Look at him. He's like, oh, a little bit of trash for you. And that right there, too. And, and then he starts running away.
Man, that reaction was a little bit delayed, I would say.
Oh, man. And, dude, they got that thing good. It looks like they cleared out the entire area with the one bomb. And we can see smoke billowing out of the opening over here.
They left the door open wide to their bunker.
Oh, dude! Oh, my lord! Dude, they are treating these Russians like literal trash in a dumpster. This guy just walked up to some kind of a flap on the side of the opening to this basement, and he sat there and just opened it like a trash can and dropped another grenade in it. Watch, man. He's like, recycle plastics? That'll work. And drops a grenade in there and then goes walking off. Dude, they are giving these guys no respect. Oh, man, I'm telling you. So they cleared out... Oh, my lord. Okay, so this was something I didn't notice a second ago. When this guy threw his grenade in, this other guy was also throwing another grenade into the opening over here. So they were wiping out both sides of the bunker, and that's why you see two separate explosions right there.
Man, that thing's smoking like a smoker, man. Good lord.
Dude, I don't know what it is with the Ukrainians today. They are usually very attentive and, I guess you could say, step-oriented, or very... detail-oriented. Today, it seems like they are on Matrix levels of orientation with what they're doing and what kind of details need to be covered. But absolutely incredible stuff, and amazing to see what kind of details the Ukrainians are going into now to make sure that they'll wipe out these Russian positions. And some people are probably thinking, oh, you know, the Russians are encircled here. That's terrible that the Ukrainians are going through and literally shooting them like fish in a barrel or just wiping them out like that. But at the same time, the argument has to be made that these Russian soldiers have most likely been requested to surrender and they refused, so whatever happens to them beyond that point happens to them. But still, very nice to see the Ukrainians clearing out any Russian resistance left within Robotyne. And moving on from that area, we also saw a small clip from the direction of Piatsky-Katsky and Lubkove today, where we saw that the Kara Dog was fighting in a trench in this area, and it appears that they were doing fairly well. Also, let's see, Robert Pitt said, wish you could do these live streams earlier. Some people have been requesting that, but I always want to make sure that we run them at the exact same time at 9 o'clock, which is our local time every single night. But some people have been asking that, and I don't know, we'll have to look into it maybe. But I feel like that's just too drastic of a change. Like, any change is drastic, but we'll see. I'm going to try. Okay, so I'm actually going to risk this tonight on this one because I want y'all to hear the audio of the firefight unless the music gets too loud. We are going to let the music play a little bit so that way y'all can hear the sounds of the trench clearing. But keep in mind, everyone, that we may be copyrighted. Some people have been saying that every once in a while, some people come in here and they go, hey, why are ads running on your streams? After our streams go up. And that's actually because sometimes we get copyrighted because a little bit too much copyrighted material plays during our streams. So if you see ads after a stream goes live, I promise you, we have absolutely no control over that. We run these streams ad-free and sponsor-free. The only thing that keeps them running is super chats. And so if you see an ad after the stream, it may be because we risk things like this, like playing some copyrighted music, and then the copyright holder comes in and they go, hey, that's my music, and then they run an ad on this thing. And when you see them Just going up. This guy right here, I don't know what his rifle training was with. I guess it was with a Draco, because this guy is managing this thing like a Draco.
He's actually doing pretty good at it too. Typically
Yeah.
it's bouncing around a lot more than that.
Yeah. Okay, now that's just too loud, so we're going to be muting that for now. And we now see them firing over the berm of the trench.
You know, the best way to handle recoil on like a Draco style rifle like that is to put one of those like straps on the back of it and try to like press against it while it's on like strapped on you. And that handles the recoil pretty well.
Yeah, you know, but my counter to that is just buy an AK with a buttstock. You know, like that just seems to be like, you know, why have a Draco when you could just have a normal AK that's going to be more accurate? That's always me. Like, I don't like the little pistol grip shotguns and stuff like that, because it's like, why would you do that when you could actually get one with a stock that actually is accurate? You know, that's just me though. But we see them lobbing some
I hate
nades.
Dracos, by the way, just to make the record clear.
Good. Because I hate them with a passion. But we see them continuing to fight in the area. And also, what was that? Did you see that? What the hell was that gun?
That it looks like it has a folding stock. That is a weird looking gun. It has a weird broomstick handle, like foregrip on it.
And it has a small
Man,
barrel.
look at the grip. Look at that grip.
Yeah, I mean, like, this thing is so weird. And look at the back pistol grip. Like, dang.
I think it's safe to say that that stock is not belonging on that gun. That is definitely not for that gun.
No, I don't think so. I don't know what that thing is. This has got to be one of the weirdest guns I've seen so far in the war. And also, I don't even know what to say about it. What the hell is this thing? Can any of y'all help us out in the live chat? What is this gun? But anyways, we're going to keep on going. We're going to let the video keep playing. And we see them hanging low for a minute. And some people are saying it's a 40 mil. Oh, we're blind, Matthew. We're blind. It has a short barrel because it didn't have a barrel. It's just a massive tube. So blind as hell. Sorry, everyone. For some reason, it looked like a small SMG or something like that, but it is a 40 millimeter grenade launcher. So sorry, everyone. We got that wrong as hell. I'm going to eat my foot on that
Man,
one.
I couldn't have told you that was a grenade launcher to save my life. It looked like a blurry mess on my screen. I could only make out like the bigger parts of it.
Man, I know I feel so stupid. That was clearly a 40 millimeter grenade launcher. We're like, what the hell is that? But anyways, we see them continuing to clear the trench, and that's the end of the clip right there. But great to see the Ukrainians continuing on the advance in this area, which greatly fizzled out. It fizzled out very quickly after they took Piatki-Kotki. There was almost no forward advance beyond that, and it does appear that the Russians are still holding Zerebyanki to this day. But still, it is good to know that they are beginning to advance once more and take trenches. We're going to be moving on from this area of the southern front, and we're also going to be moving really quickly down into Sevastopol, because the Russian forces in these areas are always relying on a massive supply network to even keep them somewhat functional. And believe it or not, while Russian corruption usually sucks up most of the equipment, ammunition, and all of that stuff before it even makes it into Ukraine, and then the rest of the corruption will ensure it never makes it to the infantry, the Russians are working as much as they can to actually get any of the supplies that remain to the guys in the field. But that also is very difficult as well, because Russian supply lines are always under Ukrainian attack, and the Ukrainians are far more effective at attacking Russian supply lines than the Russians are at attacking Ukrainian ones. We rarely ever get to see that Ukrainian ammunition depots are hit or blown up, and if we ever did see that, that is something we actually would show on air. However, when we see that kind of stuff from the Russian side, it usually is something like a small collection of mortar rounds, usually like 8 to 10 of them. So, you know, it's a frontline ammo cache for a mortar unit that isn't even the complete one. And they usually hit that, and then they say, oh my god, we blew up an ammo dump, we're winning the war. But that's not really the case. But anyways, moving on from that and down into Sevastopol, speaking of the supply line, we saw that apparently some larger warehouses are on fire inside of the city of Sevastopol after they've been hit once again by a Ukrainian attack. The Russians were completely hopeless in stopping it, but also, this is not ammunition. The smoke coming from this is a thick black smoke, and it also isn't very lush looking, if you get my description there. Oil fires usually have this very weird looking smoke. I mean, it literally looks like if you suck that smoke in, you will die. It's just purely toxic. I don't know what kind of smoke this is and what's burning in the distance, but it is a Russian army warehouse, and whatever is inside of this warehouse is being destroyed in the fire. Some people are saying it's oil, and I don't really know. I'm kind of doubting it just due to how the smoke is burning. And it could be other stuff. It could be other kinds of equipment. But we can see now, and also this disproves that it is an oil fire. That is not an oil silo. That is the rafters of what was once a warehouse that is now completely burned to the ground. So it has to be something else. Some people are saying rubber. It may have been a tire storage facility. It could have been a whole bunch of things, really, because a lot of stuff burns thick black whenever it catches on fire. Almost everything but ammo burns this thick black smoke that we've seen so far. So this could be anything, but it's not oil. It's not petrol. Or diesel. It's no kind of fuel, and it's also not ammunition either. But whatever it is now completely gone.
It could have been oil being stored in just barrels, maybe in a warehouse.
Maybe, but that's usually fairly weird, and especially in Sevastopol, where they have the massive silo farms. And I'll go down to Sevastopol real quick, because they are all over the city. One of the best examples is the silo farm right out here. This one's actually used mostly to fuel the Black Sea Fleet. And you can see the fueling stations down here where the oil tankers come in and, conduct their business. And there are also other oil silos spread out throughout the city. But I'm trying to rake my brain to find them, because I remember at one point I saw a map showing every single one of them. But that's usually hard to find in memory, because I think the last time I saw that was like 3 whole months ago. But still, very interesting to see. It may be oil stored in barrels. That would be very odd and very unorthodox of the Russians. But maybe it was. Who knows? Regardless, a Russian warehouse did burn to the ground, and they did lose whatever was inside of it. It may be affecting the war effort as a whole for them. Moving on from that, we also saw, moving further west in the front lines, that Russian forces near to Novoprokopivka and Kazachi Lahori are once again running into issues, as the counter battery is making sure to destroy any of the artillery support that they may have. A Mr. B was destroyed in this area today by the Ukrainian artillerists. Man, they are hitting us with the WAP. But anyways, we can see the Ukrainian drone looking into the distance for the Mr. B. We can see it right there, hidden in the tree line, in a pre-prepared position. And we're about to see that the Ukrainian artillery hits this thing dead on. And here it comes. Poof! Taking it out. And we can see
you gotta love Mr. B. He always has those explosive fits of anger and just lashes out.
Wait, no, man. We gotta do it like the song. Fat Notch, Mr. B. But anyways,
Yes.
we can see the D-30's ammunition catching on fire, and that is a Ukrainian kill on another a Mr. B artillery piece. And I gotta say, are you feeling it now, Mr. B? But anyways, we're gonna be moving on.
Mr. B.
Man, you better be moving on, B. But anyways, we're gonna be moving on from that area of the front line and moving up into the direction of Moscow. Because we saw something interesting today inside of Moscow. The Russians are trapping Cubans. Like, it's a literal ordeal that's happening. It's starting to reach even into the major mainstream news circuits that the Russians are bringing in Cubans and trapping them and then forcing them to work as practically slaves to build defensive positions for the Russians in the southern front. And apparently a Cuban got a hold of a mobile phone today and made a video asking the international world for help. So, to explain a little bit of the story as to how these Cubans are even ending up here, as y'all may know, the Russians have few friends in the world, and one of those friends is actually the Cubans. The Cubans have always had pretty good relations with the Soviet Union and the modern-day Russian Federation after the communist overthrow of the country in the late 1950s. Since then, Cuba has been in constant decline economically, and a lot of Cubans are always looking outside of the country for more work, or just for better opportunities altogether, because Cuba is truly a hellhole. That's why a lot of Cubans would risk their lives to travel the 90 miles in between Cuba to Florida to try and make it to the United States to hopefully be refugees inside of Florida. That's also why you would hear of Cubans ending up traveling places that were just absolutely bizarre, considering how bad off the Cubans were. Some Cubans during the time of the Cold War would end up in East Germany. Some East Germans would actually end up working in Cuba. Oddly enough, the East Germans and the Cubans had a really good relationship with each other. Some of them would also end up in the Soviet Union, and also in the modern-day Russian Federation, looking for work, although the numbers of those that made it there were quite few. And it appears that some of these were taking up that age-old attempt of trying to find more work and better opportunities inside of the Russian Federation, but now they've been stuck in a bind, and are practically being forced into a war that they never really were a part of. And so here's the clip.
Somos unos muchachos que vinieron desde Cuba. Tenemos 19 años.
Estamos en Rusia.
Estamos en Rusia para lo del supuestamente contrato, que todo ha sido una estafa, un engaño.
And so, y'all might or might not know this. I don't think I've ever even told y'all this, but I can understand Spanish very loosely. And what he has just said is that they are Cubans that are in Russia and they're being forced to sign contracts. I'm going to have to pause it here and there because there's no translation. I'm trying to pick it up the best I can. And the last time I ever heard or did anything regarding Spanish was like years ago. So I'm trying my best here.
El contrato fue una estafa y nos dijeron que era para la construcción, para arreglar las casas devastadas por la guerra, trinchera, para el escombro, una estafa.
Todo fue una estafa, no.
So this guy right here, sadly I can't pick up on the exact details of what he said, but he was once again talking about the Russian army is actually forcing them to sign contracts.
Pagado, no tenemos los pasaportes, no tenemos documentos, no tenemos nada. Ahora mismo estamos en cuero.
Quitaron todos los documentos. Nada más llegamos aquí a Rusia.
Right there, he said something about documents being confiscated, so I'm assuming that he means that the Russians are confiscating their passports and documents, and in exchange they have to sign this contract with the Russian army. But once again, I'm telling y'all, my Spanish is not that good, so I'm not really picking up on most of what they're saying, but every once in a while I'm hearing some words that I know, and I can kind of tell y'all what they mean by that, so.
And I see everybody saying in the chat they look like they're just kids, and they do. They look like they're either 17 or 18 years old at the best. These guys don't look like, they should be signed up to go fight in the war.
Yeah, I mean, not really. And they're not even really being signed up to fight in the war. They're more so being signed up to be forced labor to build defensive positions, which is the most bizarre part about this whole thing.
En todos los hospitales que llegamos nos hacen las mismas pruebas, nadie sabe de nosotros.
Cuando firmamos el contrato no podíamos traducirlo. Estaba en ruso, sabíamos qué decía el contrato, nos dijeron que no nos preocupáramos, que solo firmáramos.
Sadly, the last part I couldn't pick up on, but largely they're talking about how their passports have been confiscated after they made it to Russia. The Russians are forcing them to sign contracts with the army, and once they sign those contracts with the army, they're then having to move into Ukraine with the army, and they're being used as forced labor to build defensive positions behind the lines for the Russian army to move into once they're pushed back to them. So that is largely the breakdown. Hopefully that was an accurate translation. I can see some people actually trying to translate in the live chat. Let me know if that was the gist, because if it isn't, we'll be going back and trying to fix it a little bit if we can. But that was generally what they were saying in this clip. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news, and we can see that the Russians are, once again, so desperate for anything to help them out, they will take practically Cuban children and force them to work as labor to build defensive positions because they don't really have enough armed forces to build them themselves. But with that, we're going to be moving on into the city of Moscow because Moscow was attacked again last night, and it appears that it caused some kind of damage. And so we're going to be hoping that this video loads. It's taking a while. And here's the clip. Suka, bleh!
Oh, блядь.
Car alarms going off. It's the usual ordeal.
Now, if they were a real Russian, they wouldn't even wake up from sleep.
Dude, if it was a real Russian, he would be sitting there and he would be going, I didn't do nothing, don't arrest me, bleh.
Turn off that loud noise, блядь. The
Dude,
music's too loud.
Man, he'd be thinking, damn, the subwoofers at the party have getting freaking lit. Dude, this is crazy. I passed out drunk and now I'm waking up in my apartment and I hear the subwoofers through the window. This is crazy. But apparently it caused some pretty serious damage. We don't know what's on fire in Moscow, but it appears that a massive fire has been caused from that explosion, and we're still trying to figure out what kind of damage this would have caused. We also saw the explosion through some kind of a telescope lens that a picture was taken through, and then we saw the subsequent fire in this picture. Once again, we have no idea what's been hit. We can confirm, however, that something has been hit. And we'll be trying to ascertain what kind of real damage was caused in the next 24 hours. So we'll probably be able to circle back to the story in the Sunday fundraiser stream and tell y'all what was actually damaged. But if you hear the Russians say that they were able to shoot this drone down and no damage was caused, this picture shows that's a flat out lie. Something is on fire out there and it's billowing smoke. And drones, when they blow up, they don't sit there and burn and just exude billowing smoke. They explode and that's it. There's no fire or smoke coming from the drone after it blows up. This shows that it hit something and whatever it hit is now on fire. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news in Moscow, and of course, great to see the Ukrainians are doing everything they can to attack strategic military targets within Russia and also within the city of Moscow itself. And moving on from that, we're now going to be moving on over into Western Ukraine. But before we do, I also have to take a quick moment because a lot of y'all in the live chat are saying that the live chat is screwing up massively. Sadly, we don't have any control over the live chat's usability. That's something on YouTube's end. And I also have to complain as well because it's really annoying to us when the live chat doesn't work, and I don't understand why YouTube is having such big problems recently on the tech end. I mean, hell, they're even having massive problems on our end where sometimes parts of the dashboard for us as YouTubers isn't working. So I would like to apologize to y'all for that. That's sadly something out of our control, but I hope everyone bears with us with that, and hopefully it'll sort itself out or YouTube will fix it or something like that. But with
I'm having the same issue myself as well. I'm seeing a ton of people say they can't send live chats most of the time. And then people are even saying they can't even send super chats either. So it's having a problem all the way around.
Dang. Some people are saying to refresh, and I would encourage you all to do that. Just give that a shot. Hopefully that will help everyone out, because I'm actually not having those problems. I've actually been able to type perfectly fine tonight and got no error messages, but it appears it's affecting a lot of y'all. So see if refreshing the page fixes it, and if it doesn't, it must be a problem on YouTube's end that they're hopefully trying to fix, but knowing YouTube, it's probably something that they're not even aware of at this moment, and you'll have to blow up their DMs on Twitter to get them to fix something. But moving on from that and into the area of Lviv, and also Angry Penguin said, can't send super chats! And yeah, that's a little bit concerning to us because that's how we support ourselves and do this as a job. But if that is what it is, we'll just keep running the stream, and you know, it'll be fine. It'll be fine for the most part. Of course, the support helps. Always have to say that because, you know, it's our bread and butter. It's how we live and do this whole thing. But if that's what it is, I'm still running a stream. Like, YouTube can do what they want. And with that, we're going to be moving on into the area of the Polish-Ukrainian border, where we saw that the Ukrainians and the British had a meeting of the minds today. This is actually a picture from that meeting. Apparently, it was Admiral Sir Tony Radican that met with Ukrainian General Zaluzhny today, and from what we understand, the British admiral here was talking about further doctrinal refinements to the Ukrainian armed forces to hopefully help them out with the next few phases of fighting that they're going to be going through, which is fall fighting through the Rasputitsa, and also winter fighting when most combat actions are most likely going to be reduced in size. Of course, we don't know much beyond that. That's largely the headline. If we got into exact details, that would kind of defeat the whole thing of it being a secret meeting in between the two. But still, great to hear that NATO forces are coordinating with the Ukrainians to make sure that they can further refine their forces. Moving on from that, we also got to see that the largest Ukrainian flag to fly over the highest point in Ukraine, and that mountain is actually called Hoverla, flew today, and it was really cool to see. And also, this part of Ukraine is beautiful. I bet y'all never even heard of this part of Ukraine, but it's a part of the Carpathian mountain range. That was famously known in the First World War as a major battleground in between the Austro-Hungarians and the Russian Empire, but nowadays it's just a beautiful vista of just mountains. It's a gorgeous place, and something you would never believe is in Ukraine, because most people think of the flat plains over to the east and the north. But when you see the Ukrainian flag taking flight, and I gotta say, that is a really beautiful place.
That is. Are they flying it like a kite? It's like it's got like a string on the back or something?
No. There's a giant kite up there. It's like a paraglider nearly that's helping this flag to fly, and that's why it's kind of like bobbing around all over the place. But here, for just a quick second, it will actually take flight completely. Oh, wait a minute, not right there. It's going to be right in a second. Right there. I mean, you see the giant
Oh, that's
kite.
pretty cool.
Yeah, but really cool. Man, I gotta tell you, I'm a huge sucker for mountains. And these are beautiful. I mean, like, this looks like the lower the lower ranges of the Alps, kind of. And I guess the Carpathians are really similar to the Alps in some ways, but completely different in others. Anyways, that's the end of the
Man,
clip.
I'm trying to get with the size of that flag. Like, where do you even get a flag that big? That is massive.
I don't even
That's
know.
bigger than those camping world flags that like they have here in the U.S. Like,
Dude.
that's like 3 or 4 times the size.
Dude, you know, like, this thing is so big, you can even see the whole entire, like, reams of fabric that it took sewing this thing together. Like, you can see the individual rows of fabric on this thing.
That is crazy. And also got a whole, look how small the paraglider looks in relation to the flag.
I know, this thing is huge. And also, how big is it? It's 25 by 18 meters. So it's about 100 feet long by about maybe like 70 feet tall or a little less than that. So it's huge. And apparently weighs 28 kilograms. And let's 28 kg to pounds. So the flag itself weighs about 62 pounds. Man,
Maybe
that thing,
of lightweight materials, I would
man,
say.
that thing is light to be that big. I mean, like, hell, if this was an American flag, you know, they would have made that thing out of like raw cotton. It would be like 150 pounds. It would have never even flown. But still, really cool to see. And I love the scenery here. It's just very nice to see, and very good to know that the Ukrainians' morale is still so high that people will climb the tallest mountains in Ukraine to wave the Ukrainian flag over them. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from Hoverla, which I have to say, I'm deeming that now the most beautiful part of Ukraine, just from how that looked. And also, I don't mean to rabbit hole, but let's go to Hoverla and let's just see, like, the pictures from there. So there it is. There's the mountain. And let's see what we got. Wow, it really is beautiful.
And it's got good ratings, too.
Yeah, it's got great ratings. Apparently, the customer service up there is incredible. We can see right here the black abyss of hell, which is, of course, beautiful to see. And look, oh, look at that. Look, now we can see the mountain. Man, this place is
Lovely.
beautiful. And this right here, man, this reminds me of the Midlands in England. Not the, I'm trying to think of what it was called. It was kind of near the Manchester area, kind of in the middle of England. I forgot what that area is. Or Snowdonia in North Wales, one or the other. It looks a lot like it in that picture. But this place...
It looks kind of like resembling that Windows screensaver. You know how we saw another one in Ukraine, too? It was like the field and everything with the grass.
Oh, yeah, it does, doesn't it?
I think Microsoft might have gone to Ukraine to get all their screensavers because it looks very familiar.
It does. It looks incredibly familiar. And just look at that. That's
Lovely.
A beautiful place. I gotta say, probably one of the most beautiful places in the country. Maybe we'll be able to go over there on a pleasure trip in the middle of the war someday, but of course, I'm not really a big fan of that idea. Usually a big fan of going after the war, so that way I'm not leeching like some kind of a tourist while folks are fighting and dying on the front. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that neat little video and on over into the area of Ukrainian border. But before we get to that news, the live chat has, although been running into major issues, it has, of course, been bumping tonight. And a lot of y'all have been talking about a whole bunch of different stuff down there. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our first poll and question segment, we have some really good questions and polls to address. And our first one says, the U.S. says it has met with Ukraine to discuss changing strategies, and Ukraine is now making gains. And what are your thoughts? And also, real quick, I couldn't add it into the poll because of the word limit, but it was actually Britain and the U.S. that met with them, so it was a combination of NATO leadership. It looks like 30% said it seems coincidental to me, 23% said unsure, 29% said Ukraine has been properly advised now, and 17% said Ukraine's strategy was ineffective. And to me, it does seem, from what I've heard from various reports, that Ukraine was trying to spread their forces way too thin on the front line. And that has been something the U.S. pointed out, and it sounds like NATO has met with Ukrainian military leadership to more focus those forces on certain areas versus the entire front line. Understandably, Ukraine is very optimistic and very bold with their goals, and they spread their forces out pretty thin, hoping to take all of those areas. But I think they have learned from the West that is not the best strategy under these circumstances, and it looks like they're changing that to fix the problem. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that Ukrainian forces are spread thin in some places, but I think that's somewhat being misunderstood by NATO forces, because the Ukrainians are spreading some forces thin to dedicate forces into other areas like the southern front, and so it has a purpose. It's kind of weird to hear the United States say something like that, like, hey, your forces are kind of spread thin. Because throughout most of the Second World War, and other larger wars that the United States has fought in, there are just places on the front line where there are really nobody there. Well, really is nobody there from your armed forces. For example, the Battle of the Bulge only occurred because there were very few U.S. forces there, and a lot of the forces that were in that area were also ones that had been just taken off the front line because they had been worn down, or they were units who were green and had no combat experience. So it's kind of weird to hear that, because that is something that kind of normally happens for the most part in most battlefields, is that some areas become quiet and there's just less forces there as a result. But still, hopefully they can fix that, especially if there's information coming out where there's Russian force buildups in those weaker areas. Hopefully they can relocate forces there or have strategic reserves to move into those areas, so that way they can counter any Russian offensives that may arise. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says the Ukrainian pilot who advocated hardest for F-16s has sadly died with 3 other pilots in a crash in Ukraine. And what are your thoughts? And first off, I have to say, extremely sad news, by the way. The pilot with the call sign Juice, who was the guy who advocated the hardest for F-16s in Ukraine, has sadly passed in a training accident. So very unfortunate, and rest in peace to Juice. It looks like 68% said sad, but it won't change anything. 13% said not good, that might change things a bit. 12% said maybe the West will speed up now, and 7% said unsure. And I'm going to go with the 68%. Of course, it's very sad, first off. But sadly, on the front of F-16s going to Ukraine, I think that won't really change anything, which is good. But I do see a potential for the naysayers for sending F-16s to Ukraine to argue that might be a reason not to send as many or F-16s whatsoever. I can see that coming in the future. Not a valid argument in my opinion, but some folks might try to make it anyways. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's unfortunate to hear that there was a training accident. I don't think that should really be changing the fact that F-16s should be sent to Ukraine, because I believe that around 8 Marines, if I remember correctly, just died a few days ago in some kind of a training accident with a helicopter. So if we're operating off of that logic, we need to disband the Marine Corps, because apparently they can't fly a helicopter in training. Then, of course, I'm trying to remember that off the top of my head. I heard of some training accident where multiple soldiers died. I don't know if it was the Army or the Marines, but it was a helicopter accident, and folks did die. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to punish a country because of a training incident, considering that everyone has training accidents where people die in them. It's, of course, unfortunate, but I don't think that should affect foreign support at all. And I think that shows that the Ukrainians are like a country like any other. Hell, let me do this real quick. U.S. military training incidents. And let's see when the last one happened where folks died. So let's see here. How many U.S. soldiers have died in training? So from 2006 to 2020, 5,605 service members have been killed in training accidents. So that's actually... actually, interestingly enough, you have a higher chance of dying in a training accident in the U.S. military than you do from dying in combat, just by the numbers. So that's fairly interesting, and I think that also shows that whoever's making that argument's got to be dense. I don't mean to, shoot down a opposing argument, but that wouldn't make any sense considering that apparently we can have 5,605 people die from training accidents over the course of 15, 16 years. And then when Ukraine loses 2 aircraft and 3 pilots, we sit there and people start to act like we need to stop sending F-16s to them. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So I would say
I agree with you on that argument, by the way. That's not a valid reason not to give Ukraine F-16s, but the argument that's going to be made, which is not going to be a good one, but it's going to be the argument that's made, is that if they can't handle their jets that they currently have, which they're supposedly well trained on, the F-16s, and they don't have as much training as the other jet, then that's even more of a risk that they're going to crash them.
Actually, the aircraft that they died in were 2 L-39 Albatrosses, which are purpose-built as training aircraft. So that would be kind of silly. That's like saying we shouldn't give this guy a driver's license because he doesn't know how to drive a car yet. It's like, well, yeah, that's why he's in driving school, and that's why he maybe crashed a car, is because he's learning how to drive the car.
But Juice was very experienced. He wasn't a trainee.
Well, yeah, but, when you take up a training airplane, there's usually 2 seats, one for the instructor, one for the trainee. And so if the plane gets hit, there's a chance the experienced instructor and very seasoned pilot might die from a collision.
Maybe. I
Well,
guess.
I mean, like, what's he supposed to do? Like, become like God and fly away from the plane? Like he's in the plane with the trainee. If the trainee screws up and he gets himself killed, there's a good chance the instructor is also going to get killed as well.
Well, maybe it's not my argument. That's what some people are
Well,
going to say, though. It's coming. Just believe it.
Well, I mean, it's still a silly argument. Like, there's really no way to argue it well. The instructor died. Well, yeah, the instructor's going to die. I mean, if you're at a grenade training range and a recruit drops a grenade in the middle of the pin and no one can run out of it in time, the instructor will most likely die. That doesn't mean the instructor's an idiot. That just means that the instructor got a run of bad luck and he got blown up with a trainee. So I would say I don't really know where that argument could come from. And I know why you're trying to justify it, but it's just so weird to listen to arguments like that, and especially knowing what an albatross is. It's a training aircraft. The whole point of it was that an instructor was supposed to be there with a trainee training him, and so an accident will inevitably happen. I mean, hell, even the Thunderbirds in the U.S., which are supposed to be some incredibly trained pilots in the demonstration teams, it's not uncommon to hear that they end up crashing an F-16 for one reason or the other, and a pilot ends up getting killed. So it's just the fact of life that people die when they operate anything, for that matter. And I don't really know what kind of logic there would be to an argument of not sending F-16s to them because folks die in a training accident. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll for now, so we're moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a $50 donation from Troy Wilson. And thank you very much, Troy, for that support. He says, I read a recent report that the USA will be retiring all of their A-10 Warthogs. Ukraine has asked for these aircraft. It's a fact that they are much easier for pilots to train on. They would be in action away before F-16s and Slav Ukraine.
And Slav Ukraine. And thank you so much, Troy, for the massive amount of support. And it is back to the age-old argument of A-10 or F-16. And y'all finally heard it today. The Air Force broke the news. They're getting rid of the A-10 because the A-10 is old. The Air Force has been trying to get rid of the A-10 almost since it's been introduced in service. But this time it appears that this may actually be the one that gets rid of the A-10. They all look like that, though. The A-10 was actually supposed to be retired before the Gulf War happened, and then it ended up serving during the Gulf War, and it did well enough that its public reputation was saved, and the A-10 still serves to this day for that reason. And it also did incredibly well in the invasion of Iraq and also in Afghanistan, which continued to let it live a while. But the thing is that the A-10 is somewhat dated, even doctrinally. It's very hard to use these aircraft. They're quite slow. And the alleged invincibility that these things have is also not really there. It has it has a titanium bathtub. I'm sure many of y'all have heard about that, and a lot of people then say the entire plane is armored like a tank. That's not true. This plane is as weak as any other one when it comes to the fuselage's structural integrity. The titanium bathtub only exists around the cockpit and is meant to protect the pilot from deadly ground fire. It's not meant to save the plane. The plane is expendable. The pilot is what matters to the Air Force, and so they put the heavy armor only around the cockpit. Beyond that, however, the A-10, and I also have to say this as well, while I usually dog on the A-10 is still a well-designed aircraft. Don't get me wrong, for what it does, it's very good. The engines being inside of external nacelles helps in its survivability, because if the fuselage gets hit, there's a good chance that the engines are still running. Or if one engine gets hit, there's a good chance the second engine is still operational. It's a good plane, sure, but doctrinally it is getting dated. As far as sending these to Ukraine, if we are retiring them, what is the point of keeping them around? So I would say that if the Ukrainians are requesting them, and we're retiring them, and we have no plan of bringing these things back into service in the future, why not send them? Sure, I don't think they'll do as good as other aircraft in that kind of war, but still it's better than nothing. And if the Ukrainians want them, I'm sure they'll find out some way to use them effectively. So
I really don't think that the Americans are going to actually retire the A-10. I think it's going to be kept around for a while longer. That's probably the reason why we're not really talking very much about sending them. Because if we were actually retiring them, why wouldn't we just send them one? Because, it's going to be scrapped anyway.
Yeah, well, that's a whole thing. You see, because the military holds on to things, every military in the world holds on to things that are usually incredibly old just because they never know if they'll need them again. Like, for example, all of the M1A1s that the Marine Corps retired. We're still holding on to those because we don't know if the Marine Corps will need them again or not. And usually we hold on to stuff like that for like 10, 20 years, even longer than that. Hell, a lot of small arms end up getting held up for decades, sometimes even over a century. Just because, like, I'll share y'all a crazy story. So there's a institute in the United States called the CMP, which is a civilian marksmanship program, and they get all of their guns from U.S. Army armories. And it turns out that a long time ago, like 3 years ago, yeah, it would have been 3 years ago at this point, I went into the CMP, and they had gotten from an Army armory a Krag Jorgensen. The last time the Krag Jorgensen was used by U.S. soldiers was in 1917 in the First World War, and the Army Armory had held on to these guns since then, 100 years later, and then gave them to the CMP. And that kind of gives you an idea of how long the U.S. military holds on to stuff sometimes. It can literally be over 100 years, and then they finally get rid of it. With aircraft, though, you don't see that kind of stuff. They usually are done with in about 20 years of storage. So I would still say, though, I don't see the U.S. using the A-10 anymore doctrinally. We're moving so far beyond the A-10 that it really needs to go. It's an amazing plane. It did great during its service life, but the F-15E Strike Eagle can do the job of the A-10, and it can also evade a lot better, which is a big aspect of modern warfare for aircraft. So I would say, why not give them to Ukraine? It's not going to hurt anyone. It'll only help them a little bit. And if the A-10s end up getting shot down a good bit, the Ukrainians will just use them less. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, in my opinion. But a great question, Troy, and I got to thank you so much for the huge support and helping the channel to keep on running. And I'd agree with you. I think if the Ukrainians want them and we're getting rid of them, they ought to get them. And if they don't work, they don't work. The Ukrainians still got them. And if they work, then we've massively helped the Ukrainians in building up their air force once more, their air power, and also ensuring that the Russian forces are continuously destroyed even more efficiently. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next super chat, we have a $50 donation from James Hughes. And thank you very much, James, for that support. And also, thank you for bearing with us through the YouTube chat issues and sending the super chat anyways, because I heard you had some issues, and I wish YouTube would get that fixed because it's irritating me as well. And James said, I have heard that the Ukrainians have brought up 2 brigades into the push towards Tokmak, and if true, how many troops would that mean?
So a brigade in U.S. terms is anywhere in between 3,000 to 5,000 troops, depending on what that brigade is meant to be doing. The Ukrainian brigades, unfortunately, we don't know the exact structuring of Ukrainian brigades and how big they get. But I would assume, considering that they're starting to transition towards NATO doctrines, and the 47th Brigade, from what we understand, is built entirely around a U.S. or British-esque doctrinal form, I would assume that they probably fall within the 3,000 to 5,000 manpower range. So at the smallest, with the smallest size brigades, there would be about 6,000 extra troops brought into that area. At the largest, it would be an extra 10,000 troops that have been brought into that area to be brought against the Russians. And when you're talking about a battlefield density, bringing up 2 brigades like that into an area like Robotyne is getting close to overcrowding. It may even be overcrowding, depending on how spread out they are. And I'm assuming that they've probably given them a wide spread. Probably half of the brigades are just holding the flanks, and then the other halves of the brigades getting down to the battalion level, they're probably inside of Robotyne. So going off of that, that's a massive amount of manpower. Even at the smaller scale, it would be around 6,000 guys. So absolutely massive amounts of troops would be in that area pushing towards Tokmak. But once again, we don't know how they're being spread out, and we wouldn't want to know because that could be an operational security issue. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, James Hughes, and thank you so much for the massive support. Because support in Super Chats helps this channel to keep on rolling. And every person who supports the channel, y'all are an active part in helping this thing to be ad-free, sponsor-free, and to help us to keep doing this as a job and run it the way we've always run it. We don't bend the will of this channel to anything, to ads, to sponsors, especially on the live streams. Because on videos, the videos are so, they're so PG, I guess you could say, that it doesn't really matter. Ads are run on those, and YouTube doesn't care, and then they promote them to high heaven. Somehow, videos always do better than streams nowadays as far as viewership, which is just weird. But anyways, as far as the stream goes, y'all help this thing to be what it is. These streams couldn't be the way they are. They couldn't be enjoyed as they are if it wasn't for y'all supporting through the super chats. And so thank y'all so much once again for the support. And thank you, James, for the support. And I hope we were able to address that fairly well. And so with that, we are on to the last question from this segment. And then we're going to be moving back into the Russian border and the location unknowns and the rest of the news we haven't covered.
All right. And we have a 20 from Wubba, who says in early. And it was in early. It was one of the very first ones we got. And thank you very much for that support.
And thank you so much for the support, Wubba. It was in early. And I always remember Wubba because he's got that, I think it's the Futurama robot thing. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called, like, Blender. But but he's got that thing as a profile picture, and I always remember that. And I thank you so much for the support, Wubba. And thank you for throwing it in early as well, because that support helps this channel to keep on rolling. And thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are now going to be moving back into the news and towards the Russian border. Today we saw that some Ukrainian soldiers have taken a little bit of a trek, and it ends up that they were on the Russian border. There's the border post right there looking like Christmas. You can see him giving a little bit of a talk. And dude, I like how this guy literally sat there and stepped into Ukraine. He was like, right now I'm in the Sumy Oblast. And then he stepped backwards. He said, now I'm in the Belgorod Oblast. Dude,
This is like these guys that go to like Area 51 and like step 1 foot across the border just to say they got in.
Oh, these guys apparently actually went in and they conducted a raid because the Russians have been complaining about it, and they said that even a Russian civilian has been killed, but they didn't show any proof of any damage or even a dead Russian citizen to back up the claim. It was just a statement. But apparently these guys actually went in there and conducted some kind of a raid, but we don't know what kind of damage or the details. Oh, dang! What the hell?
Nice.
Dude,
All
that
right.
thing goes up like a freaking candle! Oh my god! Dude, they were like, and guess what? The shit Russia builds these posts out of is flammable. Hit it for them. He hits it. I'm just kidding. They put gasoline on that thing.
I was about to say, they didn't make the border post out of straight up kindling with gas like pre-installed.
Oh my god, that was funny though, man. That thing lit up. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and we're now going to be moving on to the next one, where we also saw the Ukrainians destroying some electronic surveillance equipment that the Russians have installed along the border. And poof, and there it goes. It was that easy. Moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we also got to see some really interesting stuff today as well. We saw a Kirpi has apparently been baptized in Ukrainian mud. I don't know how this happened, but we've never seen this much mud inside of an armored car before. So here's the clip. So we can see the stairs covered in mud, and as he goes inside, it is literally just mud. There's no visible metal or cloth or anything. It's all just mud. I don't know how this happened to it. I think it fell in a river, and it ended up getting silted up, because this is bad. I don't even know how they'll clean this thing. Man, some poor guy in the Ukrainian army is going to have to spend like a week cleaning this thing and detailing it.
Yes, probably the people that reload the mags, probably.
That's it, dude. You're being switched from magazine loading duty, really, to Kirpi cleaning duty. Oh,
dear. I can't get to break.
Man, dude, that's let's see, Gomer Pyle. Oh, what am I doing now, Sergeant? You're cleaning Kirpies. Oh, shucks. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see some photos of the Ukrainian Air Force, and they also included a photo of Juice at the end. But here we can see a Ukrainian MiG-29 flying over a Ukrainian Mi-24. Very beautiful picture. Moving on from that, we also got to see a Ukrainian helicopter pilot turning around and going, "Are you filming me?" Like, dude, he's about to be one of those people on those auditor videos. "Are you filming me right now?" You bastard. But anyways, we can see them working on an Mi-24. Dude, I got to say, that picture right there, that's got to be one of the best ones I've seen of an Mi-24. It looks gritty, but it looks really cool at the same time. I like it. Moving on to the next one. We also got to see this literal advertisement quality picture of an Mi-8 flying over a field. Then we also got to see a Mi-8 crew member looking out of the side door. We also got to see a Ukrainian Su-27. It's so rare to see these things in the war. Usually the workhorse of the war is the MiG-29. So seeing an Su-27 is very rare, but it's still a very beautiful looking plane. The Ukrainians do camo very well. And also, you can see this thing is loaded to the gills with R-73s. Apparently, this thing is going up there with intent to smack a Russian aircraft out of the sky from like 80 miles away. Moving on from that, we also got to see a Ukrainian pilot slav squatting on his Su-25 on Surovikin. Very nice. Love to see it.
Classic.
Dude, keeping traditions alive, man. Moving on into the next one, we got to see the inside of a Ukrainian pilot's cockpit, and also I love that mask. Really cool mask. He looks like he got that dog in him. But moving on to the next picture, we also got to see this guy. It looks like he's in a... It's either a MiG-29 or an Su-27. He's flying over... No, that's a MiG-29. He's flying over a field. And then the last picture, we got to see Juice. There's Juice right there. Sadly, of course, lost in the training incident due to the albatrosses colliding midair. But with that, that's the end of all those pictures. And it's sad to know that Ukraine has lost such a pilot as Juice. Juice has been around since the beginning of the war and has been actively involved in air campaigns over the front lines. And sadly, he was lost trying to train the next generation of Ukrainian pilots on how to fly. Of course, it's sad to know, but hopefully the mistakes are going to be learned from that training incident, and they will be avoided in the future. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news and pictures of the Ukrainian Air Force, and on into our next one where we saw the Ukrainians unpacking the modern Russian ration. Rations do change sometimes during war, so it's always important to take a look at them here and there and see if they are the same or if they're changing. Sometimes if they're changing, it could be for better. They could be trying to increase morale through changing what's inside of the rations. But for the Russians, we would usually expect that it's going to be changed for the worse due to the Russian government financially not really being able to afford the war all too well. But we can see the first things, and what the hell were they? Let's see, we can see some pastet nechni. I don't know what that is. Let me know what that is, everyone. And then we can see something that looks like a chocolate bar. Chocolate bar. Chocolate. When
the chocolate's so bad it's shocked, you can call it a chocolate bar.
Dude, you know that chocolate is crap when the wrapping looks like that. That thing tastes like wax.
Oh, jeez. That other stuff in the box looks like cat food or something.
Oh, it's probably like Tushonka or some bull garbage like that. Oh, what's this? Concentrate. It's some kind of a concentrate. What's a concentrate of? Let's see. Napitka soy. Boryshi. Unfortunately, I don't know what kind of concentrate that is, but that's like your Mio powder, like, you know, that you would put in your like water bottle in school, but I don't know what flavor it is.
Бодрящий 150 грамм, очиститель воды. Фарш.
Let's see here. We got the farce. Dude, they're already almost calling this thing a farce. Farce, kolbasny. And then it says something down here in finer text that unfortunately is too long for me to read. But let me know what this is. Wait a minute. Someone actually said...
very industrial.
Someone actually said that the concentrate was apricot flavored. Who the hell wants to drink apricot flavored water? Like that feels like the most unappetizing thing. Like apple would be good. Grape would be good. Apricot? Like what the hell is wrong with you? Like apricots are great. Like they're great when you eat them. But, like, drink flavored, that would be stupid, in my opinion.
Жевательная резинка.
I don't know what that was.
Ну, реально, повидло.
Oh, wait a minute, we got something else here. What is this?
Ну, реально, повидло.
It is pobidlo, irochnoy. I don't know what the hell that is, man. Like, good luck.
Нормально повидло, да, типа ел.
It's squeezy.
Yeah, it's mushy. And those look like little coffee or tea packets.
Plenty of patty for everyone.
Oh yeah, there's enough patty in there for years. And now we can see what appears to be the entrees. So I'm not even gonna try and read these anymore because I know I'm butchering the wordage and I'm not even understanding it either. So I'm just gonna leave this up on screen and hopefully y'all in the chat can say what this is. So now we're gonna move on from that. There's gotta be some friggin' Tushonka in this thing. Tushonka is the friggin' staple.
Бекон армейский. Сырно. Ебать. А снимают, показывают, что тут хуйня. Вот вам и... Ну, спички.
Meanwhile, Shell just whistles over, and he's like, sausage. He's like, sausage, bread, and kind of lame. Excuse me, review here.
Man, the menu just changed from shells with sauce now.
Oh, look, dude, it's doobies. Feel a little stress, comrade? Have a doobie, blade. It's like matches or something in reality.
Таблетки.
That's some
Кофе.
tiny packets over to the side here.
Сливки сухие.
Some more stuff. Little army packet.
Таблетка.
We can also see the pill for the morning after, just in case if you're around the Chechen Kadyrovites in the war.
Даже є від чогось. Вот такі у нас. А тут 1 кілограм.
And apparently this is the menu for the ration.
Мінеральний
Like,
ком.
Zoing Scoob, we're being fed dog food. Rocky, food quality.
Таблетки. Це їбори,
These guys are very calm to be undershelling, man.
Бачиш, куди летять? Йобана в рот. Чуть не прилетіло, да?
Man, they better enjoy it. It might be their last.
Nah, they'll be fine. They upload the video, they're alive.
Їбу. Короче, блядь.
It's always crazy how like calm they are during this whole thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are calm as cucumbers. Tells you that they've been undershelling a good bit. But that's the end of the clip, and there was a little bit of a look inside of a Russian ration. We don't know how much they've changed since the beginning of the war, since they didn't open any of the packs, but it looks largely like everything that was in there at the beginning of the war are still in the rations being issued to the present day. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next one, where we also saw a Ukrainian buggy. And this is one of those homemade buggies that they make, but it seems like they're improving them as time goes by. We can see him hopping in, doing some peace signs. Apparently he's pulling a Richard, I can't say names of presidents after 1960. I'm not a crook, but I can say that. I can say that, y'all get the picture. But we can see the buggy doing a little bit of test driving, and it appears that they're trying to proof this thing. And it's got headlights, and that thing can go. Dude, look at that thing when they floored it, man. That thing literally reared up and went boom, boom, boom. It's like, dang, man.
It looks like a Model A for some reason, or a Model T.
Yeah, it kind of.
And then it's like a dune buggy chassis and everything. They should like get a Lamborghini engine and put it in one of these dune buggies. That'd be epic.
Dude, the Russians be sitting there. I see a go-kart. Get the Cornet ATGM ready. Fire. And then the Cornet will be on the way. Holy moly, it's gone. it's gone. We didn't even hit it. Anyways, moving on from that and on to our next clip. We also got to see the tried and true has made it to the battlefield. Now, usually I'm not a fan of older equipment making its way to the battlefield, but some of y'all know that I have a soft spot for some things because they still kind of hold pretty well on their own in the modern battlefield. And one of those things is a 40mm Bofors gun. 40mm Bofors guns came around a long time ago, and I'll be showing y'all the ones that were used in the 30s and all the way up until the 90s. This was the first Bofors that ever came around. These things were introduced into service at large all around the world in the 1930s and would serve all the way up until the 1990s as some of the most effective guns of their caliber, usually mounted onto ships or also used on land as anti-aircraft pieces. These could also be used as anti-material weapons later on in history, and that brings us on up to the modern day L-70 Bofors guns. This is largely an improvement on those L-40s we just saw a moment ago, and largely really the same gun, but they are still used to this day. And some of y'all may recognize, if y'all look at this gun, y'all go, hey, that looks familiar, and y'all be exactly right. These are the guns that are used on the CV-90 APCs in the modern day. And I'll show you these on the APC. There is the exact same gun. That is an L-70 Bofors gun inside of that APC. Funnily enough, that gun right there with an APFS-DS round, with the first of its kind introduced into service in the 30s, this thing can penetrate around 270 millimeters of armor with an APFS-DS round. That's at least a publicized number. We don't know how accurate that is, but that is a lot of armor. That would punch through a Leopard 1 with ease. That would punch through a Chieftain with ease in some areas. And that would even punch through that would easily punch through an AMX-30 or an M60 main battle tank. Really, everything that served in the Cold War, this thing could punch through with just the main gun alone. And also, it's not just in the CV-90, it does exist in these mountable anti-aircraft setups like this one right here. And interestingly enough, to go through all of this explanation, this is what I was getting to the whole point of. The Swedes have actually shipped some of these to Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are introducing them into frontline service. These things still stand up pretty well, even into the modern day, and it's cool to see such an old but still effective gun being used in places like Ukraine. And here it is. That is so freaking cool. And we see them testing it out, giving it a little bit of a work, and seeing how effective or how accurate it could be and how quickly it traverses. And just a cool gun. Just a really
That is pretty cool.
And I gotta say, the Swedes always know their business when it comes to arms manufacturing, and I gotta say, they made a winner with the Bofors gun. It's still in use to this day, and it's not a joke. It's not something like the Maxim gun, where it's just in use because people need something to fill in the gaps. The Bofors gun is actually preferred by a good amount of militaries, and you'll still find the Bofors gun mounted onto even modern design ships. They are still used there. But with that, we're going to be moving on to our last bit of location unknown news, which shows the Russian losses for the day. And 2 Bobcat skid steers have been destroyed over the past 24
let's
hours.
go!
Hey! And not only that, 640 Russian soldiers were knocked out over the past 24 hours, along with 18 armored personnel carriers, 33 supply trucks, 12 tanks, 18 artillery pieces, 11 drones, 2 MLRSs, 2 cruise missiles, and 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems. All in all, today was a really good day as far as it went for the Ukrainians inflicting losses onto Russian forces, and it shows that they are making good ground and progress in most areas. Moving on from the casualty report and on into the northeast, we got one clip today showing a Ukrainian 120mm mortar at work near Kuzmivka and laying down the heat. Also laying down the beats. And now we can see him running up on the next round, and he's hanging it, dropping it, and doof, and the next round going up. Man, these things look like giant eggs. I love how 120mm mortar rounds look. They always just look the same. And now we can see them packing up the mortar after they fired off a couple of rounds. They're dismounting the bipod. And now they're going to be lifting up the tube here in a moment. And there we go. And sadly, we don't get to see them disassemble it, but a mortar comes apart in 3 pieces. The tube, the bipod, and the base plate. So it's actually kind of easy to move around, but for a 120mm mortar, this crap is heavy. Very heavy. But moving on from that, and into our next clip a little bit further down the lines, it appears that some action was heating up today in Kremenna, and it appears that the 100th Brigade was the one conducting most of the actions against Russian forces today on film. And so moving on into our first clip, we saw that the 100th Infantry Regiment located some Russian BTR-82s inside the forest, and then went on to destroying them. Alright, we got some guy whispering in the
that's
dark.
about to be a bop.
Dude, that's how the mall cop sounds when you hear something in the dark after the mall's closed. He goes, "Is anyone here now? Please answer me."
Security Mall Cop the musical.
Man, I hate mall cops. Not anything against.
Well, I don't hate mall. Damn, man, what you doing? Taking a shot at a whole career.
Oh man, listen, man, I don't hate mall cops, but I hate the mall cops that have got like a police type attitude to them. It's like, dude, you don't actually have any enforceable authority for the most part. Why are you acting like that? That's just me. That's just me.
I say segues for all mall cops. I'm advocating for that 100%.
Oh yeah, totally. But we can see the BTR-82 getting hit right there and exploding. We can see that in the infrared as well. And we see the drone continuing to watch as the Ukrainian artillery comes on down. Barry said, "Hope there are no mall cops here." And I'll say this: mall cops are okay. Mall cops that are assholes are not okay. Really, that's just my thing with everyone. It's okay, whatever trade or profession you're in, but if you're an asshole, I can't stand you. It's Oh, that's the end of the clip. We can see the BTR-82s bit the dust. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that a Russian tank was destroyed in this area as well today. This appeared to have been a T-72B or even a T-72B3, but it was largely missing most of the add-on armor except for the Contact 5 tiles that were attached to the turret. We can see that the tank has already been hit, and it appears that it's joining the graveyard of other destroyed Russian vehicles in the area. And it's just a small fire, but I promise y'all this will heat up here in a moment. And now we can see it getting hit again, and this will start the larger fire. We can see the fires are now starting to really brew up inside the tank, and they're coming out of the commander and gunner's hatch. And right now the fire is burning on some of the punctured ammo shells, but in a moment the heat will catch up to the rest of the ammo, and we'll see the whole thing brew up quite nicely. Riddle Me This says, this feels strangely personal. It kind of is. I'm not going to get into exact details, but I had a run-in with one recently, and I wasn't a big fan. Just saying they were assholes. So, anyways, we can see the tank now brewing up very well. We can see the fire even coming out of the driver's compartment. But it appears that the breach was closed in this tank when it was hit, and because we're not seeing any fire coming out of the front of the barrel.
Man, when the Russians turn the heater on to 100%.
Man, dude, dude, the Russian guy who's now just a skeleton in there, he's fanning himself. Man, it's getting a little toasty in here, Bled. And that is getting toasty. It's a roaring inferno inside of that tank right now.
You could cook a ham in there in under a minute.
Dude, I think you're burning hams in that thing. Like, I think that thing's coming out as charcoal, man.
Now it's time to sear the pan. Oh, that's right. Sear the meat.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Absolutely delicious. Wow, yeah.
It's burnt.
You're cooking in a burnt pan, you effing. But anyways, moving on from this clip, great to see another T-72 destroyed, and of course, huge credit to the 100th Regiment. Moving on from that, we're now moving on and down into the area of Bakhmut, and while there weren't any frontline updates worth noting today, there was a lot of action that happened in this area. Starting off with the 30th Brigade, which is in the most northern fringe of the battlefield, we saw that they were striking some Russian positions in the Bakhmut direction with their armored vehicles. We can see the Ukrainian...
They made the X logo in the field. Look at that.
You're getting exploit. No! It hits you with the shell. Oh, man. But there they go. They're making their way through the field. And it's such a beautiful place. You know, except for the tracks going through the fields. It's beautiful out there. It's picturesque. It's quite nice.
And minus the artillery fire and the random shells flying over there.
You're a little bit of a pessimist, aren't you? It's a beautiful place out there. Wondering and Wandering said, "Are you proud sponsor of Kingsford Charcoal?" No, I just got a thing with Kingsford Charcoal. Did I just say Kingsford Charcoal? I did, didn't I?
I don't
Kingsford
know.
Charcoal. I'm a big fan. Like, I'm a big fan of making jokes about it because charcoal is something you can make jokes about all day long. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like it's a great thing to make jokes about.
I think you meant to say Russia's a proud sponsor of Kingsford Charcoal.
Oh, I thought you meant are you like are you? You know what I mean? Like, anyways.
No. Anyway.
What happened? America can be described in one word. Sounds like a Model A trying to start up in the morning. But anyways, we see the Ukrainian tanks have made it to the end of the field. And now we can see them appearing to be trying to hit some Russian positions. We can see this one actually reversing back over the road.
Wow, I'm getting a cinematic feel out of this footage. This is nice.
That's it. This drone pilot is doing so good. And we now see the tanks beginning to create a line formation. Y'all wouldn't believe
one guy's
this.
getting kind of brave driving off the path like that.
Y'all wouldn't believe this, but this formation in tank doctrine is actually called a line formation, like it's the 18th century, which is cool to me because, you know, I like line formations. I think they're neat. But when you see the tanks continuing to fire directly in front of them, about 150, 200 yards away, directly into the Russian positions. We can see something explode right on the other side of the road. Don't know what that was. It didn't seem to come from the tanks. And we can now see the tanks firing again. The drone's now going to get a cinematic pan of the tanks as they continue firing across the road. Dude, this drone pilot is doing amazing, man. Way better than that drone pilot who filmed that intro for a certain thing that happened on TV a little while ago that looked like they were some kind of an amateur that only had 30 minutes of practice, but I'm not saying anything beyond that. But anyways, we can see them.
He should fly the drone over there to the Russians and show where they're at, too.
Dude, he probably will in a second. He'll probably sit there and fly the drone right down on top of him, teabag him with the drone, and be like, here they are. And apparently that tank just hit something large because it just went up. I don't know what it was, though. Wait a minute. Was that a KAMAZ? So something looks to be on fire over there right now. We see the tank looking that way and hit it. Holy moly, that was a truck. And now we can see the deformed remains of the truck after he got hit by the HE. It didn't do that well. Also, by the way, while we're watching this clip, because it is a little lengthy, there is a song that I have referenced every once in a while about the KAMAZ truck. Every once in a while, it's like, and I always make jokes about it. And I feel like I need to bring y'all up to speed because I've never explained where that joke came from. It's a song from the Soviet-Afghan War about the KAMAZ trucks, and I've listened to it before, so I'll be pulling up the KAMAZ song and seeing if I can get it playing for y'all because I know it's not copyrighted. Can't be copyrighted because it's a Soviet-Afghan war song, and copyrights simply don't exist from that time. So while this video clip plays in the background, I'm just going to play a little bit of KAMAZ so that way y'all get the joke. Also, this was filmed on a VHS tape, by the way, the music was. That's why it sounds so ass, but anyways. We see the Ukrainian tanks laying down more fire.
Oh, okay.
Dude, the song is a meme, man. The song is the meme to me.
This changes the whole feel of the film.
Kinda does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ни взрывы, ни пули не остановят нас. Мы с трассы не свернули вперед. Ползет КамАЗ.
And there it is. There's the line. Ползет КамАЗ.
Ведем колонну сквозь кордон густых туманов. Нас не пугают снегопад и гололед. Как ленту финишную рвем заслон
JD Macko said orc folk. Yeah, it's orc folk music.
И ни взрывы, ни пули не остановят нас. Мы с трассы не свернули вперед. Ползет КамАЗ.
But anyways, that's the song. That's
Wait
like
a minute, who made that song?
So it was apparently just some random like Soviet soldier that was serving in the Soviet-Afghan War, and he just made the song. And it was about the KAMAZ convoys that would have to drive under any conditions because, of course, the Soviets were about as stupid as the modern Russians. And so when the Taliban, or the Mujahideen more so, would attack the convoys, there was an order that no matter what happened, no matter how much of the convoy was destroyed or if folks died in front of them, they were just to push the trucks off of the road and just floor it and just go. So it was.
It sounded very Spanish almost. Like it sounded real like I really can't even describe it.
Well, I mean, I've got to admit, it's not that bad of a song. You know, it just sounds like crap. The quality is crap, but it's not a bad song. And also, all of the Soviet-Afghan songs ended up taking a very critical approach to the Soviet government. So I like them because they're usually anti-Russian, funnily enough, which is very weird because it was the only time in the Soviet Union where stuff was made that was critical or just openly negative of the Soviet government because of glasnost and perestroika under Gorbachev. So it's the only time in Soviet history where you actually get songs made inside of the Soviet Union that were critical of the Soviet government and what they were doing and how the army was performing in Afghanistan. And a lot of people are asking, what is the name of the song? It's called Forward KamAZ. So it's Forward, KamAZ. You can find it on YouTube. But it's a song that I've listened to a bit. I listen to a lot of old songs, so I know them off the top of my head. And that one's a meme to me. Whenever I see a Russian supply truck getting hit, I always think, Polzhet KamAZ. I didn't like think of that song. But anyways, we can now see the Ukrainians have laid out some smoke grenades of some kind that apparently are just burning oil. And now we can see the Ukrainian tanks retreating from the field.
Wow, they're going back fast.
Dude,
do you see him?
they are
Like
kicking
French
it, man.
tank.
And they are really kicking it, but they just put a 180 on that tank, and now they're just driving forwards off the field. And they're firing as they retreat as well. And we can see them continuing to race off the field, throwing up a little bit of dust as they go, because they're going so quickly. Oh, and the bot got it. I was waiting. I was like, how long will it take? Man, he got executed. And it seems like a lot of y'all enjoyed that song. If y'all want, I could make a mixtape, you know? Like, I can go through and find all my songs and make a mixtape of it. Because most of my songs that I listen to, oddly enough, are older songs. Like, the songs you hear in the 10-minute intro to the stream, those are actually songs that I just listen to. I enjoy songs like that. Kind of weird, because most people are into modern music. I'm usually not. But hey, you know, if you wanted me to make like a little playlist, I could possibly try and do that at some point. But with that, that's largely the end of this clip. We're just watching the Ukrainian tanks withdraw from the field, but great to see the 30th Brigade pummeling Russian forces. Moving on from that, we also got to see that a Russian vehicle was destroyed towards the area, and let me make sure I'm getting this right, of Berkivka. And so, with that, here's the clip. This was also conducted by the 77th Air Mobile Brigade today. We can see the FPV drone hit the BMP-3, and the BMP-3 conducted a turret toss. Really cool. And also, Lawrence said, put it in the intro. That's something I've been thinking about a little bit while we watch the BMP blow up again in slow-mo replay. I've been thinking about throwing in some new songs, but it's not really Ukraine war related. That's kind of like the apprehension to throwing it in. But we can see the turret fly. I would have to give that an 8 out of 10. It was good flight time, went pretty high, and it didn't land that far away. And oh my lord, what's happening? Like, what the hell is this?
A little bit of fireworks to go with it.
I think they just got rattled by a BMP-2 after the thing blew up. But with that, beautiful turret toss, and wonderful to see that they were able to destroy a rare... Well, actually, they say it's a BMD-4. Let me go back. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, everyone. The BMD-4 has the turret of a BMP-3, but it is a different hull. So that is actually a BMD-4, not a BMP-3. And so moving on from that and further down into the area south of Bakhmut towards Klishkivka, we saw that the air recon in this area, which is attached to the 3rd Brigade, has been doing some work. So we're going to be muting that. And we can see the air recon spotting a Russian moving around inside of the tree line. And we now see the Ukrainian artillery has been called in immediately. We can also see the Ukrainians throwing up signs on screen like a 10-yard penalty or something similar. And now we can see a giant artillery cache right there. We all know what's about to happen. That's about to blow up. And there we go. There was the hit, and the ammo is immediately burning. We can now see an entire Russian platoon, it appears, moving down the side of this road. No spacing being observed, which will prove to be a disaster here in a minute. And we get, oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I tried to lay low, and then the Ukrainians really laid me low. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Have you ever wanted to watch an entire Russian platoon get splattered by Ukrainian artillery? Well, watch and learn as this Ukrainian drone's going to throw down a bomblet that lands right inside of that trench. Here we can watch the Russian soldiers struggling to cope with the obviously large amount of firepower that is being levied by Ukrainian artillery. We can now see them trying to evacuate their wounded, a rare first for Ukraine. I'm sorry, rare first for Russia, sorry. I was
about to say, Ukraine always evacuates their wounded.
Yes, I was like, what the hell's going on here? Those aren't even Ukrainians, those are Russians. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and further south to Andriivka, where we saw that Ukrainian forces were continuing to assault forward. This apparently was removed by the moderator, but YouTube don't give no damn. It's just so we're going to be watching it. And also, we're going to be showing a small amount of this because some of it does get a little, a little non-PG, but they're blurring some of it out. There goes another one. There goes the Ukrainians unloading from a British APC. And we can see them doing some clearing. We can now see the epic intro of the Terra unit. Terra coming in here like CNN or Fox News or something with this kind of intro. And now we can see the Terra commander here. He's going, hello, everyone. We're going to watch Russians get gas today. Are y'all going to have fun?
He's got a nice desk set up. He's got those bomblets on the desk, a little coffee with cafe on the side. He's got some nice drones, some nice packs. This guy's kitted out.
Man, this guy's living it up, man. Like, this is better than my set. So we're going to be skipping forward past this part because, unfortunately, there's no subtitles. But now we can see a Russian making his way down the trench. He doesn't know that there are some Ukrainians following close behind. And he's on his way. You know, he's just doing his thing, you know, walking around in the trench. He's turned around for a moment. I don't know if he spotted the Ukrainians yet. And so many people are still asking what the name of that song was. Apparently, a lot of people liked it. The name of the song that we played during the tank video was Forward, Kamas. It is a song from the Soviet-Afghan War, and the song tells the story of your normal Kamas convoy that would have to race forward under fire under any conditions to try and bring supplies to the Soviet outposts that were within Afghanistan. So it's a really interesting song and a really interesting part of history. Well, you see the Russians kind of hanging out in this part of the trench. We can see him moving past some pixels. Y'all know what that is, hopefully. And we can see him now moving back towards where the Ukrainians were. We now see the drone dropping a bomblet. Hits dead on the nail. And we can now see that he has now become pixels as well. We can see the Ukrainian soldier creeping down the trench. He's not a creeper, mind you. He's just creeping. And we can see him finding the Russian. The Russian right here is touching his arm. He's like, you know, although I use the crocodile, I can still feel my arm bleed. This is so weird, bleed. Oh, I think I hear someone. And the Ukrainian's like, I think I see someone. Oh no! Oh no, bleed! Oh! Dude, he did that man dirty. Look at this. Matty, the Ukrainian said, reverse trick or treat, bleed. And the Russian went, oh! And he's like, oh no! He tosses it out. Oh!
Oh, I think he saved it.
I don't know.
He surely he did. That was too far away to get him.
Now look at him. He's like, I shall do the same thing, bleed. Where are they? Oh, there he is. Let me pull the pin, bleed. Trick or treat! Oh, bleed! He did trick or treat as well! Everyone went, oh, bleed! It's trick or treat! So everyone runs away. The grenade blows up. Everyone gets blurred out, but we don't know who's wounded at the moment yet. The Ukrainians are actually fine. Hey, look at that. Dude, that was great. The grenade exploded about right here. The Ukrainians ended up perfectly fine. So now see them firing back at the Russian, trying to keep them low. When you see the Russian going, bled, trick or treat did not work. I get freaked out by their trick or treat, bled. Ukrainians are holding the position. We can now see another Ukrainian drone just creeping by. Look at him, man. It's going to go drop a bomblet on this guy, probably. But we can see him setting up a nade. We see the Ukrainians.
Is that just a one-man little spot in the trench for the Russian, or is there other people behind him?
I think it's a one-man hidey hole, just for this guy. So that's what.
Oh man, he's in a tough spot.
Ooh, that was a good throw. The grenade lands right in front of this guy's foxhole, explodes. Something went flying there, but we don't know what that was.
A little rock.
Oh, he's still there. He's still doing his thing. Oh, we just saw something fall onto the screen.
He is pinned down.
Dude, he keeps poking out, going, oh man, I'm in a real pickle, bleed. You know, the guy could just surrender. I feel like that would be an easier thing for this guy to do. When you see the Ukrainian going, hold on, man, I got the grenade for this guy. So he's like, okay, I'll make sure to hold the position. He's holding the corner. When you see the Russian, he's in a bit of a bind here, because if he tries to get back out and throw the grenade again, this guy's holding the corner, and he's going to blast him. But he's got to do something, because if he waits, they're going to lob a grenade right into his hole eventually, and they're going to get him. So That's why you see him like frantically looking around and stuff, trying to figure out what to do. We now see the one Ukrainian soldier with the nade. He's once again moving back forward. This guy's holding the corner. And he chucks the nade. Oh, sadly, right over the top. So it's not going to get him. It's just going to rattle him. So it rattles him, of course, but it doesn't get him.
Man, it seems like the people flying the drone would like tell the guy on the ground, the Ukrainian, you know, he's either looking or he's not, and let him run around the corner and chunk it in real quick and run off.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, the guy almost got had right here. Because he peeks out, and this is his problem. He can't peek out to see where the Ukrainians are because they'll see him, and they pop off some shots. And we can see that those missed him by inches. So, you know, he's pretty largely stuck. He doesn't really know where the Ukrainians are. They're firing again. He lobs the nade. The Ukrainians go running back, but this one landed over the berm, so it's not really going to do anything. But, of course, they get blurred out. When you see the Ukrainian moving up, this time he's gotten tired of this crap. He's just going to get it done with. And he got it done with.
Oh,
hey,
damn.
Didn't even take a nade. So, there we have it. And they're now running back. Y'all may be wondering, why is he running back like that? Well, the guy had a nade in his hand. They don't know if he pulled the pin. Because if he pulled the pin and then his hand, you know, loosens up because of what just happened to him, the nade's still going to go off. So they're running off now to make sure that the nade doesn't get them as well. And they're waiting. They're just making sure that no nade's live and going to go off there. And it doesn't appear that one is. But we now see them tossing another nade in just for themselves, just to make sure. You know, they did light the guy up, but you got to be definite about this kind of stuff. And we see that they got him. So now they're going to move further down the trench, further down the line.
And that Russian chose that fate. He could have surrendered.
And now they're dropping some bomblets, trying to see if they can get the guy off the bat. And they got him off the bat, it seems. We'll make sure. Oh, yeah, they got him off the bat.
Some pack.
You know, we saw some equipment flying. They got him. When you see the Ukrainians standing by further down the trench, probably waiting for confirmation. Probably seeing if there's any movement. And we now see them making sure to clear the trench. I gotta say, the Ukrainians have been going about this pretty well, all things considered, especially considering the hidey holes involved. That's pretty tough to deal with. And yet they've managed to take no casualties out of the two guys in this team, and they have been moving a good bit down this trench, maybe about a quarter mile in this video. And with that right there, we're going to have to end this clip, and we're going to have to move on from the next one because beyond that part, it gets a little too much. But with that, we're moving on from the area of Bakhmut. Great to see them continuing to fight in that area. And we're now going to be moving on down into Marinka, where we saw that an FPV drone hit the Russian forces. Oh, and we're going to be muting the psychedelic music, but we can see the Russian position there, and we're about to see it gone. Here comes the drone, right onto the position, slamming into it, and taking it on out. Chugga chugga! Igor! Beautiful to see. Wonderful to see. And here comes the next one. And another beautiful hit. Beautiful, amazing blade. And with that, they see in the clip, but great to see another successful attack in the area of Marinka. We're now moving on to the area of Pavlivka, where we also saw the Ukrainians have been fighting there today, and apparently are pushing the Russians out fast. This is apparently, from what we know, on the southern end of Pavlivka. When you see the Ukrainians stacked up on the outside of the building and preparing to move in and clear it. When you see the guy appearing to prepare a grenade, possibly lobbing one in right there, couldn't really tell too well. And we can see some smoke coming out, so I'm assuming that that was a nade. They're now moving into the building. Not quickly, though. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And we can see house-to-house fighting still occurring inside of Pavlivka. Moving further on south into Yakarivka, we also saw some Russians found some Ukrainian leaflets today that were encouraging them to do the smart thing.
На секунду.
They're like, oh, блядь, they're telling us to surrender. What is this crap? I want to get paid nothing and suffer.
У нас праздник.
And look, they even gave him a QR code.
Это что уже интересно.
Is that? What the hell? What is that?
Pepe?
Dude, Pepe doing something, man. Like,
Пока ты принимаешь снаряды
Oh my
на
god, I
голову,
just
Oh
saw
my
the other part of it, man. What in the hell is that?
dude, and the Pepe is Chechen. It's a Gidurabite. Oh my
Pepe,
god.
that pimp.
Dude, Pepe is apparently related to Mark Zuckerberg because he'd be giving out the Zuck. But anyways, moving on for that. Moving on for that. Over into the area of Urashane. The village chain. Man, Pepe going wild. He wild these days. But moving on.
Man, Pepe was jacked, too. Did you see all those muscles on Pepe?
Pepe was roiding, man. Pepe was a medical freak. But moving on from that into Urashane, we saw that the Ukrainians took some more POWs today as they continue to move forward. This is about 6 of them or so. Moving on from that, we also got to see at Zaydaba-Bajani that they are now starting to clear the village of Zaydaba-Bajani and have moved into it.
Защищайте, защищайте! Свои есть!
See him tossing an aid down there. Nade explodes, blowing out the whole basement. Now see them continuing to fire.
Крой, крой, крой!
We now see them advancing through the rest of Zaydaba-Bajani. I think I just said the wrong town, actually. Or that may have been the right one. I don't know. I'm having a mind warp right now. See them continuing to fire, continuing to move.
Стреляют, стреляют! 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 Пацаны, я бегу!
Continuing to advance, we can see the squad regrouping. See one of the the machine gunner of the squad laying down some fire. And that's the end of the clip, but showing some of the ongoing fighting in that area. Moving on to our next one, we also got to see more Russian soldiers being captured as well. Y'all thought the first clip was good, the second one's better. Check it out. He's more of them, блядь. A lot of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About a squad. About like 3/4 of a squad, really. But hey, still better than nothing. And so, moving on from that and into our next clip in the area, we also got to see Russians being hit on the far flank. And y'all know what I gotta say. Very nice. And apparently there's some small girl laughing at this. And then we can see, oh, dude, that bulletproof vest flying sky high tells me things did not go well. But hey, at least the plate survived. Like, you know, look on the bright side. Well, that's the end of that clip, but that was a pretty effective nade, bled. Moving on from that and into the area of Khilipol, we also got to see that Ukrainian artillery was hitting them Russians during an advance. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Russian artillery was landing near the Ukrainians during their advance. Why does this look so beautiful? Like, not the artillery. Forget the artillery. Just the area they're in. This is gorgeous. Oh, dang, and the driver just sat there and got distracted. He went, oh, and then he slammed it. Look. You see some more artillery landing in front of him, and it appears that the APC is going to go off-road a little bit, hopefully to avoid artillery. We now see the infantry dismounting and moving into the tree line, but a shell landed pretty damn close right there. And at the end of the clip right there, I don't know what happened. I don't know if that was a AP mine or a 40mm grenade, but that one exploded right on the guy. We don't know how wounded he is, but he is still walking, which is a good sign, so hopefully it's nothing severe. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news, but of course, a lot of danger as the Ukrainians continue to advance, and we're now going to be moving on out of the southern front and on up into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 549 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech. Man, I wish it was like the 5-minute speech so that way I could go and do stuff like get a snack or something, but here's the speech.
Dear Ukrainians.
Oh, no, we're not going to the speech yet. Hang on, everyone. I'm not going to have y'all's eardrums desecrated by that English translation thing.
Дорогі українці, українки, вже 30 років в останню суботу серпня своє професійне свято відзначають працівники, працівниці української авіації, і військової, і цивільної, пілоти, інженери, всі, хто в авіагалузі, в авіавиробництві, в авіатранспорті, всі, хто робить Україну однією з міцних країн. Бо справжня міцність є лише у тих держав, які вміють захищати власне небо, шанують власну авіацію. Зараз цього року Україна має зробити всю необхідну роботу, щоб у нашому небі з'явились F-16, і це стане новим рівнем української військової авіації. І це наблизить повернення цивільної авіації в українське небо, бо наблизить перемогу і дасть Україні більше безпеки. Є із чим привітати у цей день авіації, є за що подякувати. Я вдячний, ми всі вдячні. Але, на жаль, сьогодні тільки таких слів недостатньо. Вчора у небі над Житомирщиною сталася катастрофа, 3 льотчиків загинули. Серед них Андрій Пільщиков, позивний Джуз, український офіцер, один з тих, хто дуже допомагав нашій державі. Дуже. Мої співчуття рідним та близьким, усім, хто знав хлопців. Триває розслідування того, що сталося. Деталі говорити зарано. Звичайно, будуть з'ясовані всі обставини. Звичайно, Україна ніколи не забуде кожного, хто захищав вільне небо України. Вічна пам'ять. Хочу сказати сьогодні ще кілька речей. Перше, наші воїни на Бахмутському напрямку, усі, хто б'ється в районах Кліщівки, Андріївки, Коктюмівки, Авдіївський напрямок, Мар'їнка, Мелітопольський напрямок, зокрема, Роботине. Дякую вам за міцність воїнів. Друге, наші партнери. Станом на сьогодні вже більше 20 держав приєдналися до декларації Групи 7 щодо безпекових гарантій Україні. Наша команда працює далі. Зараз майже 30 загалом разом із Сімкою. Буде більше. Розпочали перемовини з Канадою щодо двостороннього документу про безпекові гарантії. Раніше розпочали з Америкою і Великобританією. Дасть Україні значно більше можливостей. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто працює заради цього. І третє, наші емоції. Не варто давати емоціям взяти вгору ніде і ні в чому, особливо між нами, всередині суспільства, між українцями. Будь ласка, дбайте про одне одного і встигайте подякувати усім, хто допомагає обороні, усім, хто допомагає Україні. Захищаємо нашу державу абсолютно раціонально і йдемо вперед та наближаємо нашу перемогу. Перемогу України. Слава Україні!
And Herom Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 549 of the news. And that is the end of the halftime show as well. So we are now moving on into the second part of the stream. The fun starts here. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and jumping into our first poll, it says, at this point, do you think the Wagner is going to disappear, or are they plotting revenge? It looks like 44% said they're plotting right now, 41% said they're going to disappear, and 15% said unsure. And this was a pretty even poll. Slightly more people said they are plotting revenge. And to me, I'm going to be completely honest, if the Wagner hasn't done anything by now, I don't think they're going to do anything personally, and I think they're going to disappear. Obviously, I was holding out some hope that maybe they would go back to Moscow, because right now that is the most promising way that Putin might be taken out of power. But it looks like that might not happen, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
In the forms of coups, time is of the essence. And considering that Prigozhin has been dead now for days, and the Wagner hasn't done anything, I think their window has almost slipped away at this point. So if something happens tomorrow, I'll be shocked, because they said something might happen tomorrow on Sunday. Right now, actually, over there is Sunday, so if anything would be happening, it would be happening starting now. So if nothing happens, then nothing ever will happen. And Putin got away with it. Putin got away with stopping a coup that actually would have destroyed his government and then killed the guy who led it, and nothing came of it. That would be the most shocking thing, but it appears that may be the way it's turning out right now, in all honesty. But I hope they do conduct a coup. Like, you know, although I realistically think it's not going to happen at this point, really. I think the majority percentage is heading that direction. In, like, the percentage of chances and what will happen, I would still wish that that would happen, because if so, we might see that this war ends, because Prigozhin was actually largely anti-war when he conducted the coup. He said the entire war had been started on lies, and that the Russians shouldn't even be there, and then the coup began. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next poll says Putin has ordered the quote-unquote non-existent Wagner group to sign oaths of allegiance to Russia. And what are your thoughts? 56% said Wagner will not comply. 26% said Wagner will largely comply. 14% said unsure. And 4% said Wagner will comply 100%. And I think that Russia is going to have a problem tracking down the Wagner soldiers, because I think they will simply go their separate ways if they don't have any organization, and that appears to be what's happening right now, in my opinion. And I don't think Wagner will comply, and there's really going to be nothing Russia can do about it, since they are not cohesive anymore. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think that the Wagner will mostly sign the contracts. They did that the first time around, and that's also why the Poles and the British said that the Wagner forces on the Polish border were Russian forces, because most of them had signed contracts. So I would say they're probably going to do that again, although, you know, things have changed drastically. We're not seeing the backlash that we were expecting from the Wagner at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that being said, we are fresh out of polls, so we're moving into our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have one from, let's see here, we have one from Drunky Monkey, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Drunky, for that support. They said, good day, guys, and keep up the great work. And Slava Ukraine, and long live the LSA, and please take a live chat question.
And thank you so much for the support, Drunky Monkey, and helping the channel to keep rolling. Your support helps out a great deal. And I thank you so much for being here with us again tonight and continuously supporting this channel. The support means a lot. And, you know, I always say that supporting the fundraisers is more important, and it is, but support is also equally important, because it helps us to be able to exist to run fundraisers. And so I got to thank you so much once again for looking out for this channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling and supporting us. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And do we have a live chat?
And we do. It goes to Pakatang, who says, Matt, did you know that the U.S. won't give dirt bikes to special forces? Too many training accidents. And it's kind of funny that they won't, if that's actually a thing they're doing right now. I actually haven't heard about that, but if it's true, considering they put them into the most dangerous situations possible, and they won't let them have dirt bikes, that's kind of telling. I'm sure those guys get on those things and absolutely go wild on them, and I can't blame them, because they're pretty fun, but kind of wild. Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that that's pretty crazy. I actually didn't know about that. And wouldn't that be funny, Matthew, if they said, "Oh, yeah, we got to get SEAL Team 6 moving. We got to go kill someone." And they said, "SEAL Team 6 can't go." Why? About 2 or 3 of them are currently in traction right now from accidents. Accidents? What the hell happened? Dirt bikes, sir. Dirt bikes happened. But
man,
that would be pretty funny if that's true, and it probably is true. But yeah, the one thing that people don't know a lot is that deaths and injuries in training actually happens a lot in most militaries. Like in Sweden, I believe something like the fatality rate of pilots in Sweden during the Cold War was like 25%, because all of them died in training accidents, nearly. Like 25% of all the pilots in the Swedish Air Force throughout the Cold War, they all died before they left the service in training accidents. And so, you know, training accidents and deaths resulting from it are actually a lot more common than people would think. And that's why I find it really weird that people are putting a lot of emphasis on a training accident with the 2 Albatross aircraft from Ukraine, because really it's just like a dime a dozen kind of deal when you look at it. But anyways, hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, Drunky Monkey. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Luke Bousseau. And thank you very much, Luke, for that very generous support. And he says, hi, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, and Russia are getting slaughtered, I'm telling you. And would just like to say thank you for the effort that you guys put in daily to bring us these live streams, and slow Ukraine. And P.S., this is for the ammo fund.
Hey! And thank you so much for the support, Luke Bousseau. and thank you so much for supporting the ammo fund. That ammo fund will go towards 30-06, which is one of the best calibers made. It's the best! But I'm just kidding. I'm a real big fan of 30-06. I think it's a great caliber, great round. It's a great round, great caliber, the best, it's the greatest. The ratings are incredible. But anyways, and also, oh man, I'm telling you, the Russian force is getting slaughtered. Oh man, I'm telling you, I got slaughtered one time. My parents, they tried to sell me to a pig slaughterhouse. Oh man, I'm telling you, they didn't even know I wasn't a pig. I was that ugly. Oh man, I'm telling you. But still, thank you so much for appreciating what we do and supporting us so that way we can keep this thing running. And that's a big reason, support like yours is a big reason why we are able to keep this thing running. It's actually really the main reason, because it is a job, you know, and it's so stupid. You know, you hear people out there, like critics that say, oh, you know, it's so wrong for them to get super chats. It's like, well, if I didn't get super chats, I would have to, you know, make money to live somehow. What would I do? Well, it couldn't be this. I would have to go and find another way to use my time. It wouldn't be doing this. And I got to thank you so much, Luke, because while you appreciate this greatly, you are a big reason why we are able to even be appreciated by you, is because through your support, we keep this thing running. We can do this as a job. And I got to thank you so much once again for the kind words and the support in enjoying these streams and helping them to keep running. And also, thank you so much once again for the ammo fund. It's going to go towards 30-06, and I think that would buy, at this point, around like 18 rounds of 30-06. So about 3 M-block clips of it. And so with that, or 3 M-blocks of it, because some people are, oh, it's not an M-block clip, it's an M-block. And you're right, it is an M-block, but for some reason I always say M-block clip. But with that, thank you so much for the support, Luke. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Dilly Dillinger, who puts in a 20 and says, LSA forever, and love from Norway.
Hey, and thank you so much to Dilly Dillinger, Dilly, and thank you so much for the love from Norway. We love Norway, we really do. It's a good amount of our viewers are from Norway, well, really Europe for that matter. I was about to go through the Scandinavian countries, but really they're all over Europe. And I gotta thank every single one of our European viewers, and especially our Norse viewers, a great deal for being on this channel and enjoying it, because it's so cool to know that the Lee Spring Army spreads across the world, from the shores of the United States to the far reaches, all the way to Japan. We have viewers that are Japanese. Isn't that crazy? I always think that's just insane. It's truly a worldwide community. And I gotta thank you so much, Dilly Dillinger, for being one of those amazing Lee Spring Army viewers from the legions across the seas all the way in Norway. And so thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you, Dilly Dillinger, for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is a very generous $100 donation from Joseph Andronako. And thank you very much, Joseph, for that very generous support. And it says the Army wanted the 810, but the Air Force said no. And that Lamborghini made a Humvee type with an awesome speed, but U.S. said no, so Saudi Arabia bought them. And I never heard about that Lamborghini made Humvee type deal right there. I don't know what we were thinking turning that down, because I surely wouldn't have if I was in charge of purchasing stuff. I would have bought that in a split second. So, do we have a video of that?
Hang on, I gotta go find this. Oh my god, it really existed! Whoa, that is so wild. Hang on. The Lamborghini. Wait, hang on. Let me go. Okay, so I found the name. Let me go do some research on this real quick, because I've never heard of this before. This is whack. Oh my god. It really was real.
Let's see it.
That's it.
A Lamborghini Cheetah. I think I've seen this somewhere, but I bet you that thing flies. It looks like it could fly.
So let's read about it a little bit, because this is crazy. Okay, so the Lamborghini Cheetah, not Cheetah, was Lamborghini's first attempt at an off-road vehicle. It was built on contract from Mobility Technology International, which in turn was contracted by the U.S. military to design and build a new all-terrain vehicle. The basis of the design came from MTI and was largely a copy of the FMC's XR311 prototype, seen here. That's the XM311, which is far uglier, to be quite honest with you. That thing looks like it's an abandoned stepchild, developed for the military in 1970. This resulted in legal action from FMC against MTI and Lamborghini in 1977 when the Cheetah was presented at the Geneva Motor Show. The XR311 and Cheetah would be considered progenitors of the current Humvee. The Cheetah was built in San Jose, California. After initial construction, the prototype was sent to San Agata so Lamborghini could put on the finishing touches. They decided to go with a large, waterproofed, 180 brake horsepower, 5.9 liter Chrysler engine, rear mounted with a 3-speed.
Oh, come on, it's a ripoff. It's not really a Lamborghini.
Yeah,
then.
this shit.
It's got a Chrysler engine in it.
This little thing has a 180 brake horsepower, 5.9 liter engine in it. So this thing is not scooting like a Lambo. It's more like a Humvee, really. To be honest,
I could probably still haul, but it's just not gonna, it's not a Lamborghini. I mean, so really, Lamborghini only made. I'm not sure at this point. What did Lamborghini make? They didn't make the chassis, did they? They definitely didn't make the engine.
I think they were just largely the ones who assembled the vehicle. I think that's really
Man, they just put their name on it.
Yeah, dude, they just put that thing on it for cred. That's it. But man, like that. Okay, that's kind of a letdown. I'm not gonna lie. Slavic Ukrainian Max said, "This is crap." I gotta agree, man. I had high expectations with the Lamborghini name attached to this thing, but like, dang, like that's kind of mid. I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, I could see probably why they gave this thing up for the Humvee. Or really just dropped it for the legal dispute, and then they went with the Humvee a little later because it's not really that impressive sounding. But there's not really a lot known about it either. But apparently there was there was a successor to this thing. This thing.
LM100. What kind of engine's that got? An AMC? Did that say an AMC engine?
A 180 horsepower AMC V8. Dude, these people are what is this one? This has got to be what the hell? Now, I gotta admit, this thing is going backwards in terms of aesthetic at this point in its design process, but what kind of engine does this thing have? Let's see. So this one could produce 332 brake horsepower, and it had a...
But that one actually had a V12 in it.
Yeah, this one actually had a legit V12 in it. And it could also fit 11 people inside of it, like, dang. So, let's see the next successor. And this one apparently this one was actually produced. This one was actually made.
This one's called the Rambo Lambo. It says on the title right there.
This one, the Rambo Lambo. This one's also called the LM002, and I can already see the LM being used to say lemon. But anyways, let's see here. Uses. Oh my God, it's another Chrysler V8. it's another AMC V8.
Oh my! Look at that silver one with
this one looks like a hearse.
Oh my goodness, that is ugly.
Oh, what's the successor to this thing? The
Sounds like something that Michael Myers might have driven through your neighborhood.
Oh! It's the Volkswagen Beetle. That is so ugly. I don't like this thing. They keep on getting worse. Ew. Dude, this thing is jacked up. I gotta admit, that is bad. Really bad. But still, thank you for sharing that with us. That was a fun rabbit hole. And also, the U.S. Air Force would never allow the Army to get an aircraft because it would violate the Treaty of Key West, which was an agreement in between the Army and the Air Force as to what kind of air vehicles would fall under the Air Force and what kind of air vehicles would fall under the Army. And so based off of that, the Air Force can use helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft, but the Army can only use rotary-wing aircraft, which means helicopters. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you for the massive amount of support, Joseph, and helping this channel to keep on rolling, because massive support like that helps us to make this thing possible. And so thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw Son of Gimli, I think, say, pretty sure it's a Q7. That Urus thing is actually based on the Q8, so you're pretty close. It's just a different shell on top and a new engine and slightly different suspension, but it's basically an Audi Q8. Which is kind of weird if you think about it. Also, that Rolls-Royce SUV is just a rip-off of the BMW X7, I believe it is. The same chassis and everything, just a different engine, same situation as the Urus. So it seems to be like a trend with car people these days to be doing that. But I don't think it looks that bad, personally, but it's not really my thing. But anyways, moving on to our next Super Chat, we have a $20 donation from Thomas Marsh. And thank you very much, Thomas, for that support. And it says, retainer for my favorite future lawyers. And Slava Ukraine. And thank you.
And Slava Ukraine. And thank you so much for the support. Thank you for saying that we're going to be your favorite future lawyers. maybe we'll be able to represent you one day. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Hopefully you don't find yourself in the legal avenue, because usually I would actually highly suggest that people avoid that kind of route if you can. But still, thank you so much for the support and the kind words as well, and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Marion Deemert, who puts in a $20 donation, as well as David Price, who also puts in a 20, and they said awesome stuff.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Marion Deebit and David Price, because the price is right. And thank you all both for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling. Yeah, I didn't throw in comments, but I did see the super stickers. I think Marion Deemers was the pair spinning around with fireworks behind it, and I forgot which one David Price's was, but I think it was also a pair. But I got to thank both of y'all so much for the support, because the support says a lot. While you didn't put a lot in the super chat, y'all didn't even say anything in them, the support says a lot in keeping this channel running, and it helps me to say a lot, because y'all are helping me to stay on air. And so, thank you to both of y'all so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Tyson, who puts in a 12 and says, if Putin were to die, who do you think would succeed him? And how would this war aims differ? And would he be willing to negotiate an end to the war? And also, can I get a, what happened? Read the line.
What happened? Reread the line. But thank you so much for the support and enjoying the channel. I hope that's what you're looking for. And also, let me make sure that I'm addressing everything here. Because I always want to make sure. Let's see. If Putin were to die, who do you think would succeed him? And how would his war aims differ? I think if anyone succeeded him at this point, it would be wildly popular to end the war in Russia. Because while people are still openly supporting the war, at the same time, it is a financial drag on Russia, and it's something they can't really keep up much longer. So someone would probably be wise to come in Russia and go, hey, look, it's a change in the directions of the wind. We're no longer big fans of the war. And then hopefully in their minds, Russia would be brought back into the economic world, and they'd be able to make a good bit of money. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much for the support. And would he be willing to negotiate an end to the war? Yes, that's largely what I would be thinking, is if a new government came in, they would be doing that. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we're about to be moving on to the next one, but someone in the live chat said, you were so wrong. Oh, let me see. Well, you were wrong about the Army and the winged airplane. They have the Osprey. I wonder. Now, we will have to rabbit hole for about 2 minutes on this one, because I swear, the Army does not have the Osprey. I might be wrong, though. So let's find out. So who uses it? Let's see here. Role, national origin, primary users. It's used by the Marine Corps, the Air Force, and the Navy, and also the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, but not the Army. Y'all might notice it specifically does not include the Army in that list, and that's because this is a fixed-wing aircraft. While it has the tilt rotors, the wings are fixed in place, and that means that this this Osprey here, it can't be in the Army because it will violate the Treaty of Key West, which means that they can only use helicopters and not something like that. So I had to address that really quickly because someone said I was flat out wrong, and if I am, I'm always happy to be corrected, but on that one, that's just a fact. The Army doesn't have them. And so, like Barry Badgernout said, call him out, call him out. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Bobby Caudle, who puts in a $10 donation. And he said, to the school coffee fund, and good night, LOC.
Hey, thank you so much for the coffee fund and helping this channel to keep on running. I love a coffee, and I thank you so much for supporting my sips of coffee, because it helps me to be hype all the way up until 12 o'clock at night. Yes, sir, let's go! So with that, thank you so much once again. I'm bursting with energy tonight because I had a lot of coffee. But thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have a $10 super chat from Troy Wilson. He says, and the sound of the A-10 main gun makes would scare the hell out of the Russians. Oh, to be fair, I think that sound would scare the hell out of pretty much everyone. That is a menacing sound. One of the top 10 most menacing probably in warfare.
Oh, and I would have to agree. And that's what I think the A-10 has largely been good for throughout the later part of its service life, is just morale. It's a huge morale booster to the folks that know that that aircraft is on their side, and it destroys the morale of people who hear that gun on the other side. I don't really think it's that effective as a weapon system anymore, but as a weapon of terror, you know, I think it does pretty good. So that's the best way for me to put it. I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and I could not disagree with you on that. The A-10's gun would scare the hell out of anyone if they even were alive at the end of it to hear that sound. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Tony Stankard, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Tony, for that support as well. He says, Wagner went to Moscow basically unopposed. Can you explain why Ukraine hasn't done that too, or go around through Russia and hit them from the back? And it may be dumb, but it seems like a good idea to me. Ha ha ha. And Slava Ukraine.
Ha 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 ha. But still, thank you so much. But still, thank you so much for the support. And a great question. The reason why they don't do that is because if the Ukrainians did it, there's a good excuse the Russians could use to launch a nuke at them. And they could easily do it. There's really no Russian forces on the border. It would be a quick breakthrough, and then you just start driving. But the Russians would go, oh my lord, they're violating our sovereignty. You know, our existence as a nation is at threat. Fling a nuke. And at that point, sadly, and you know, and I know a lot of people would like to hear that under any conditions the United States would come to the rescue for Ukraine. If that happened, we probably wouldn't, because the Russians would have a very serious argument that the Ukrainians were about to overthrow the Russian government, and that's going to be ending the existence of their country, which is the only thing where, well, that's the only clause where nuclear weapons and the use of them are excusable in the modern world, as if the government or the existence of the nation is directly at threat, and that would bring that existence into threat, and therefore nuclear weapons would be used, and it could be completely well, it could be explained away completely and nothing would come of it. And that's why we don't see them doing that. But it still would be really cool if they could. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Tom Exman, who puts in a $10 donation and says, can we have animals in Ukraine as tomorrow's fundraiser in honor of Bob Barker, who passed away at 99 today? Dang, 99.
Oh, man, I forgot about that.
Wise old to get to.
Man, I forgot about that, Matthew. Did you hear about that today?
About the guy passing away?
Yeah, about Bob Price.
I mean Bob Barker?
Yeah, Bob Barker from The Price is Right. I got the two things mixed up.
Yeah, I did hear about that, actually.
Yeah, that dude, I must have had like one of those weird like mental click things tonight, because I just brought up The Price is Right a minute ago, and I completely forgot that I heard that he died today, and he was the host of it. And you know, yeah, we could do something like that. A lot of people have actually been wanting us to do all kinds of interesting fundraisers, and I think we could give it a shot. But one thing that we always have a bit of an issue with is that whenever we run fundraisers for things like, and I'll name off some of the fundraisers that have ended up not doing as well as others, things like International Fund for Animal Welfare and World Central Kitchen, for some reason people just are not as apt to support those fundraiser-wise than other fundraisers that focus on like medical aid and things like that. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't seem that people are into them too much. Although I have a huge heart for animals and I just love pets. Not really a lot of people end up supporting it. And that's why we never really ran a lot of fundraisers in those categories, is because we would always see it was really hard to get people to support them. I mean, hell, we even noticed over the war that folks are clearly getting more financially stretched as well, because, you know, support's going down somewhat across the board. But, you know, so it was hard back then. We don't know how hard it would be now, but that is something I would like to see and try and do. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And hey, we might do that tomorrow. I can't guarantee anything, but I will see about it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Troy Wilson yet again, who puts in a $20 donation and says, love the show, guys, and long live the LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much for loving the show, Troy, and supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing running. You help us to keep this thing alive, so that way the LSA has a place to breathe. The LSA is a community of its own, a special one, and an amazing one at that. And this is the home of the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, thank you so much once again for your support, Troy Wilson, because you are helping the phrase, long live the LSA, to stay true. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Billy Gomes, who puts in a $10 donation and says, I've been to Ukraine twice since the war, and they don't see you as a leeching tourist at all. They appreciate the support emotionally and financially, and it's a great clarity of perspective to be there.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I think I misworded that wrong a little bit earlier. I don't think it's wrong to go to Ukraine and go there and enjoy it, but at the same time, it just seems like, to me, like, this is my thing. When you sit there and you go to Ukraine and you never get near the front lines and you're not really there, especially in a position I'm in, to do business in regards of helping Ukraine, and you're just kind of sitting around and drinking and having a fun time and going to bars and stuff, I would feel pretty scummy doing that, me personally, because it's like I'm living off of the backs of everyone who's dying in the front lines and helping out the war effort, and it just feels really scummy to me if I was to do something like that. Now, I would go over there during the war, and I would be there if I had a purpose to be there. And I wouldn't discourage anyone who's just an average citizen, who's not doing this as like a job to cover the war in Ukraine and to share the story of the brave people who are fighting and dying over there. I wouldn't deride them at all for doing that. I would support them doing that because they are going to be supporting local businesses. But in my position, as a YouTuber who covers this war, that knows what's going on over there, the suffering and the fighting and the soldiers and the folks who are supporting these soldiers and everything else in between, and all of y'all who watch this show, it would just seem really scummy for me to go and like hang out in Lviv or Kyiv and just hang out there for days and act like it's a wonderful beauty trip. While I know that folks just 120 miles away are laying down their lives to stop the Russians from pushing further into the country. So that's kind of what I meant from that earlier, because I don't want to dissuade anyone from going to Ukraine. It's a beautiful place, and if y'all want to go, please feel free to do that. But I don't want to go unless if I have a purpose. If the Ukrainian government, for some reason, requested us to be over there, which would never happen, I would go. Or if we were actually doing something for soldiers that we talked to and we had to go over there for that, then I would do that. But beyond that, I wouldn't want to go over there, especially because of what we do and how we've been covering this war. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I thank you so much for support. And I hope that clarifies what I meant by that earlier, because I certainly did not mean that in the way it came out, but I kind of just moved on from it. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. Hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Psyops, who puts in a $10 donation and says, attention LSA, the emotional support group, the A10 sound, will be meeting in room 101 after the stream, and there will be coffee and cookies served, and please leave your flight suit at the coat check.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and helping the channel keep running, and I'll make sure to check into that little conference if I can after the stream. And so with that, thank you so much for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one also goes to Psyops, who puts in a $10 donation and says, I pray that Juice will have boundless azure horizons as he lands in heaven. And Juice, you will forever be a hero and inspiration for not only Ukraine but the world. Godspeed, Skyman, and show a few pics of Juice.
And thank you so much for the support. We only have the one picture of Juice on stream from the Ukrainian Air Force, but Juice was one hell of a guy, and he was one of the big advocators for the F-16 arriving in Ukraine. So here's our picture of Juice right there. Probably the best one of them, too. The guy was a great aviator, great pilot. He had done massive things, especially on the diplomatic sphere, for Ukraine to get the F-16s, and of course, sadly died, I believe, yesterday. Still, his impact and legacy in the war will never be forgotten, and I'm never one and I don't want to say this because this is something that's a little bit nuanced to me. I'm never one, especially when someone like him has such a storied history, to make it sound like it was a tragedy. I mean, this man lived a life that most people would not live and had such a massive impact on his nation that he may be saving the lives of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, thanks to all of the efforts that he was able to do in getting Ukraine F-16s. And while he may be dead, I think that he should be remembered always in a great light and in a positive tone for all that he was able to do to help out the nation in this war. But still, an amazing pilot, amazing aviator, and unfortunate to know that he's gone now, but still, his legacy will live on through the nation of Ukraine. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Lucas Sandlin, who puts in a 10 and says, hey, Enforcer, I keep hearing from individuals arguments that they believe Zelensky's government to exist only due to CIA, and can you please debunk this and condense the real history behind Ukraine that is not CIA?
Now, that would take a long time, but I'll
That
try and
would.
I'll try and bump through a few things that are big speaking points after 1991 that shows that the Ukrainians have always been trying to move west. In the very early 2000s, the Ukrainians actually were trying to move into the European economic unions. And then they ran into some issues because the Russians were trying to keep them in the fold. That would lead to the Orange Revolution, which saw some progress where the Ukrainians got a Western aligned government. And you have to remember at this point, the US wasn't really doing much in Eastern Europe because so many countries were trying to join the European Union and NATO naturally that they didn't have to do anything. It just was naturally occurring because they wanted in on that on the great economy that you got by being a NATO member and the defensive alliance and also being in the European Union as well. Ukraine was also wanting in on that, and the Orange Revolution was a great sign of that before the Maidan Revolution of 2014. The Maidan Revolution and the Orange Revolution are kind of the same thing. It's just that the Maidan Revolution made massive changes to Ukraine, while the Orange Revolution was more so minor changes. But all in all, you can see throughout their history since 1991, they've always been trying to move westwards. So the 2014 Maidan Revolution was more so just a natural progression of that change, more so than it was some kind of a CIA-backed coup. And also, you can't make an uprising of hundreds of thousands of people CIA-backed. CIA-backed is when a military junta takes control of a country. Popular uprising like we would see in Romania during the fall of Ceausescu, that can't be CIA-backed because there's just so many hundreds of thousands of people involved in it at any one given moment. They can't all be CIA ops, otherwise your whole country is nothing but CIA employees. But with that, I thank you so much for support. I hope that it condenses that the best I can. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and moving on to our next one. Actually, before we move on to our next one, let's go ahead and vote in the, or take a look at this poll, not vote in it. Y'all have already done that. So the question is, war tourism, is it tacky or acceptable? 67% said it's tacky, not good, and 33% said it's fine and no problem. And I would say, on my part, my opinion, that, you know, the way I visualize it in my mind is going over there to visit in the middle of the war is basically like driving by in your car, like when there's tornado damage somewhere, smacking on some mutton, and also drinking some wine or something, going, oh, that looks like some terrible damage over there. I'm telling you, as you're like driving through while you're like sipping on your wine and stuff. To me, that is not very good. It's not a good look. They are in the middle of a war, and of course, some folks are going to say that it does help out by bringing in tourist dollars, but at the same time, it's also a little reckless to even go to a war zone like that for the person visiting as well. So I just don't think it's good all the way around, but, you know, it's just my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I would largely have to say it's something that and I'm saying this from my position, and I'll say that I actually have two different positions depending on who you are. If you're in my position where you do this as a job and you're reporting on the war, it seems like a real douchebag move to go over there and then just act like it's a vacation. And you know, and that's interestingly enough, like it seems to become a little bit more of a trend as time's going on that people are trying to treat Ukraine like a vacation spot, although they know what's going on over there and it's a war. The only way I could explain going over there and being a quote unquote war tourist is if my schedule was literally filled with nothing but work. Like if I went over there and I just interviewed soldier after soldier, hour after hour, and every waking minute of my time was spent like it is over here for the most part when I'm out of law school, just working on covering this war, then I could explain it away because it would make sense to me. I'm actually doing something to help out with the war effort. I'm spreading the news around the world. I'm getting the story of these soldiers out there. Or I'm meeting with the Ukrainian government and trying to get the LSA tied into the Ukrainian government, kind of like NAFO has been. That's something that I've actually wanted to do, but we've never been approached about that. That would be a huge thing, though. That would be a reason why I would travel to Ukraine in the middle of this war right now. There are several reasons as to why I would do it, but it would all have to be work related. Of course, I would be over there spending as much as I can. You know, I would be going to restaurants all over the place trying to spend a good bit of money because they, you know, are probably hit a pretty good bit economically because of the war. But beyond that, I wouldn't want to be just over there like, you know, screw the war. I'll do like one thing here or there to just kind of remind myself about it. And then I'll just hang out and booze cruise all day. It's like, that's a real douchey thing to do, in my opinion. You know, that's just my take on it. Now, if you're just a person who like supports Ukraine, but you don't run a channel or something big where it's your actual job to cover this war and pretty much work to help out these people or talk about their stories, then I don't really think the same way about it. I think it would be fine because y'all are supporting the local economy by doing that. And, it can't be everyone's responsibility in the world to always act like they're carrying the weight of the war on their shoulders. I just feel like we're in a different position, though, because of how much the channel's raised, what we do as a job, and everything else involved. I don't think it would be fine for us to go over there for no reason rather than just for the hell of it. That's just
really, rather than going over there to actually visit, people can just simply donate to organizations that disperse it to Ukraine instead of actually having to physically go there and spend the money and, be a tourist.
Yeah, that's also something too, and that's kind of what we do with the fundraisers. We don't have to physically be there. We support nonprofits through the fundraisers, and then the folks who are actually over there working nonstop helping these people get the funds raised by the fundraisers and then continue on their work. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and it's very interesting to see that a lot of people are largely in the camp that it's just not good altogether. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Troy Wilson, who puts in another 20 and says, this super chat is for Juice, and rest in peace, mate.
And thank you for the support, Troy, and I thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And also, once again, rest in peace to Juice. Juice was, of course, a great pilot, but he also had a massive impact on Ukraine. And I think he should be certainly remembered for that. And maybe several memorials should be made to him, considering that when the F-16 arrives, it may be a massive game changer, and his efforts may be greatly felt by the soldiers and the citizens in Ukraine. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Julian Britt, who puts in a 10 and says, I didn't mean to not leave a comment on my first super chat. And I did add it, by the way, and I meant to take that part out since it was meant for me. But he said, thank y'all for the best breaking news, and you guys are hilarious, and long live the LSA, and Slav Ukraine.
And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I saw that, Matthew. I was actually about to address that here real quick. But thank you for the support. And what happened? Reread the line.
Julian said, thank y'all for the best breaking news, and you guys are hilarious, and long live the LSA.
And thank you so much for enjoying the breaking news. We try and make it as funny as we can. And sometimes the jokes are extra corny, and we do that. It's a deliberate thing. It's easy to make a corny joke, and it's also kind of easy to get a cheap laugh off of it. But I thank you so much for enjoying it all together. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you make this thing possible. And so, with that, I've seen something interesting here, and I wanted to shoot on this one real quick, Mandy. Someone said, people are making money off this war no matter what, hence the super chats. And I don't really get that premise, because for some reason, and I know where these people are coming from, because y'all may or may not know this little movement of people coming into our live chat and saying stuff like this didn't happen until another YouTuber started a beef with us a while ago and then acted like what we were doing was exceptional. But what's stupid to me is that this person wants to act like he's on a pedestal after he begged his viewers for money to go to Ukraine and have a vacation, which is kind of what we were touching on a little bit there, just in a broad sense. And also, he also gets super chats as well. And I don't understand that premise, because people do have to make money working at a job. And while this is a war, this is also our job. And we have to cover this, and we also have to be able to support ourselves to continue to cover this thing like we do as a job. I do this 60 hours a week. So if I wanted to get another job, I wouldn't be able to do this. So it's either we are able to support ourselves financially, covering this and working at it as a full-time job, or we end up having to work somewhere else and we don't do this.
If you take that same premise and you apply it toward news organizations, that argument is basically saying that places like the Associated Press are war grifters because they report on the war and they make ad money to support the organization. It's not the same thing, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
And also another thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me is how people act like everything is supposed to be free. Like, and this is, and let me explain that really quickly. We run this channel for free. You can support us or not. You can watch the channel for free your entire life and never send in a super chat, and that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, we have to keep the thing running. And to do that, we have to be able to pay rent. We don't live in the basement of our parents' house for free. We pay them rent. We have to pay for gas to go to school. We have to pay for tuition at law school. There's a whole bunch of bills we have to pay. And we have to do this as a job as well. So it's either we get supported by this, or we have to get a job and work like everyone else at a normal job, and then we can't do this. So You know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And also, the other thing is that guy flashed his YouTube dashboard in front of everyone on his stream for a moment, and it's so ironic that he'd even say anything about what we've done, because on his dashboard it showed he made like $8,000 in 1 month. You know, and it's like, well, that's really rich for you to be saying that no one should be profiting off of the war when this guy is over there just making a killing off of the thing. I mean, hell, if we made that much, we'd be lucky, nearly. But anyways.
Say his name. What is it?
Call him out.
Blithering idiot.
Blithering idiot. But anyways, with that, hope that does address that fairly well, because it's always annoying to see that in the live chat. And that never happened until that one guy said that crap. And it's like, does anyone understand that we can't live for free? I mean, y'all aren't living for free. You know, y'all have to work every day to be able to pay bills and eat. Why the hell do people expect that we can just live for free? You know, because no one else can. What are we, special?
And also, the donors are choosing to be generous by helping keep this whole operation running by donating. That's a choice they're making to help keep this news going. So it's like, what is the problem?
Yeah.
It's a choice.
Yeah, you know, and that's the other thing that's so annoying too. It's like we don't like bend people's arm to make them support the channel, like badgering them to get a membership. Like, we don't have anything that badgers y'all. Like, the worst we have is on our video summaries. We say, support us on Patreon, link in the description below. You don't have to. The videos are still going to be coming out. You don't have to do that. You don't even have to throw in a super chat. You don't have to do any of it, but you get to decide if you want to. And then when you decide, you get to decide how much. Like, hell, if we were, like, I would get it if we were, like, people going, you gotta support us. But we don't. You know, we say if you want to, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You know, and if you want to, you get to decide how much. It could be $1, it could be $500, which is the maximum. You know, it's one or the other, you know, and I just don't get it. Because our whole entire channel runs off of voluntary support that y'all want to give, that y'all find worthwhile. And yet people are out there acting like that's wrong, that we give y'all a choice to support us or not. And then based off of that choice, we make a living so we can keep doing this as a job. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, because that was just another live chat like it's normal. But anyways, with that, and then also, man, I love how that one person, oh, you've done pretty good, inserts a number that just comes out of the black hole. It's like, where the hell does that number come from? Because I'll tell you this.
The numbers are never accurate that these people pull up on the internet. If y'all don't realize it, nobody, when you pull up like stuff like that about income figures, the internet doesn't know. They don't have your information. They take guesses at it, and they're usually way wrong, way off base, and then people get that false information and use it and weaponize it against you.
Yeah, and also, I was like, the number that was pulled up on that stream was so damn off base. It was unbelievable. Like, we looked at that and we were like, if we had made that much, I would feel like a real ass. I really would. We have not even made close to that. And that's the one thing that I'm like, and then that number just goes around. You know, it's like, and I'll also say this, the real number we will not disclose, but it's nowhere close to that still. You know, it's like, that's just ridiculous. But anyways, with that, enough on that. We're getting back to Super Chats. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 Super Chat from Moth Bab, who does not leave a comment, but thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much, Muthbab, for the support and helping the channel to keep on rolling, because folks like you make it possible. And while you didn't throw in a comment, you are helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Monsieur Gaston, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Monsieur, for the support. They said, I've been here since before Enforcer Matt was your co-host, and I love you guys, and LSA. And
hey,
man, you are old, much older than me.
Man, Gaston! Gaston! But thank you so much for the support, Monsieur Gaston! And thank you for being here forever. And thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And thank you for loving us, because we love all y'all. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And also, really quickly to run back to this, because I'll tell y'all this, it's a little bit of a secret, but go around and check people's channels, because you'll see that this is true. Social Blade, where the number came from, that everyone runs, well, not everyone, but this one guy runs around and touts the number of. If you go and look, it counts Sundays as revenue, which aren't revenue
Playboard, by the way, I think.
Well, no, yeah, not Social Blade, it's Playboard. Playboard counts fundraisers as revenue. We don't get to see a cent of that. Like, that's just how YouTube fundraisers work. Yet when they see it come in the live chat, they don't care if it's for a fundraiser or if it's a super chat. They just add that into the total. So the total of us on Playboard, it includes the fundraisers in it on Sunday. And if you go down into the breakdown details, you can see that every single Sunday it just shows this massive spike that is the fundraisers. And then it doesn't even account the fundraisers properly either. So the numbers are just way off. And it's just absolute BS. And if you want to see, if you're from the other channel, because I'm sure they're now like a little hive over there. Oh my God, he's talking about it. If you want to see, just go to your guy and go click on his Super Chats thing and see the last time he ran a YouTube Give fundraiser. You'll see the same thing. They don't account that as a fundraiser. They act like that's revenue, which it's not. And that's why the numbers.
Better yet, ask him to show his tax returns since he's so transparent, and let's see what the real numbers say.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Oh, I released them when I'm not being audited. Come on, man.
Yeah. So that, hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Yen Asterial, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Yen, for that support. They said, does Zelensky's AI voice sound sort of like a young Mark Hamill / Luke Skywalker to anyone else? And thank you guys for the nearly 550 days of covering Russia's invasion of Ukraine and slow Ukraine.
And thank you so much for enjoying the coverage. And it doesn't really sound like that to me. I watched those Star Wars movies recently, actually, but I just don't think they sound like that, to be quite honest. But maybe some other people see it. What do y'all think in the live chat? But with that, thank you for the support. Thank you for helping the channel keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to the librarian Supermanny, who puts in a $7 donation and says, I am a copyright librarian. USSR joined Universal Copyright Convention May 1973. Russian Federation adopted all USSR obligations. Sadly or rightly, Russian Federation owns copyright on Soviet-era music created under 72, or after 72. But the good thing is, though, since we're on bad terms with them, they are not going to be able to enforce anything with us. So even though they may officially have a copyright, they can't really do anything about it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you for the support. Matthew's actually right on that. The United States right now and YouTube does not recognize Soviet or Russian copyrights. So if it's from the Soviet Union or Russia, you can practically play that stuff and no one's going to do anything about it. So that's why I was like pretty confident in playing that song, because I was like, it's Soviet. No one's really enforcing those copyrights, so we'll play it. But with that, thank you for the support, and you are correct on that. If we were on good terms with them, we would be enforcing their copyrights, but right now, it is hog heaven. If you listen to an old Soviet song and it had a copyright, no one's coming to enforce it. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Troy Wilson, who says, I saw Prigozhin at my local 7-Eleven. He was eyeing out some Krispy Kreme donuts.
And thank you so much for the support. And now we're starting to get the Tupac sightings, Matthew, and the Michael Jackson sighting. Dude, I swear, man, he was getting donuts. Or more so, Matthew, Shoigo! We take exact change, Bliat! but anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. Help the channel keep on running. And we'll get the cops out in your area. We'll see if it was Priggy Boy. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a 7 from Duncan VR, who says, Ba Mooba. Someone mentioned animals. Ba Moo, quack, oink, ba. Matthew Professor says, Moo, ba, oof. Oh, man, I'm telling you, no respect.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. And I got to thank you for the support and helping the channel keep on running. It also, thank you, Duncan, for always throwing in the animal noises. We can count on you. And so, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a 6 and says, for the, period, ... Let's see the tickets to see Oppenheimer. And I don't know what the hell I just did there, but anyways, eventually, as always, I think you're both awesome, and take a live chat question.
And thank you. I think you're awesome. And also, hopefully we will get to see Oppenheimer soon. We still haven't seen it, but I've heard that Le Bomb kills le people, so, I'm already kind of there. But, one day we will see the movie. I'm just hoping it's soon, though. We were actually planning on seeing it with some friends that we haven't seen in a while. They were actually here tonight, so I don't know if they're still watching right now, but we were planning on watching it with them, so hopefully they come back soon. Like, it's going to be a bit, but hopefully they'll be back soon, and we were hoping to watch it with them. And hopefully it'll be fun. Hopefully it'll be really fun. It'll be absolutely great, absolutely fantastic. We'll be watching movies, ratings will be good. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and says, take a live chat question. And thank you very much, CK Bold, for that support.
Hey,
and we will grab a live chat question. The usual, number 1. And the live chat question goes to Geraldine, who says, how do you see the war ending?
I see the war ending at this point, well, especially with how the Ukrainians were moving on the lines today. They may actually be able to split the lines by winter. If they keep that progress up each day, they will probably be able to do that even before the Rasputitsa. But we don't know. You know, it could change tomorrow. They could hit a brick wall tomorrow and stop dead again for another few days. But if they are able to split the land bridge in two, I think we'll probably see that the Russians will start to lose a lot of fervor in this war, because there won't really be a lot for them to do at that point. So really, to not go through the whole rabbit hole, because that would take ages. I would say that the war will most likely end, if I just had to give the most likely option, in my opinion, with the Ukrainians retaking everything in Ukraine, including Crimea. The Russians will probably make some kind of protest about Sevastopol, and we'll have to see where that goes. I don't know what would happen with that, but the Russians will probably be in financial ruin and political upheaval by the end of this war. And so that's the way I'm thinking it's most likely going to end, but you never know. It could go many other ways. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. Hope that, well, actually, thank you so much for the support, CK Bolden, sponsoring that live chat, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next. I'm trying to cut that out, man, so that we were not spending so much time. But you know, it's okay.
Yeah, cut it out. Cut it out. Now that I know, I'll move on after I hear the last word. But anyway, moving on to our next one, we have a 5 from Ari Solini, as well as a 5 from Dilly Dillinger. And no comments to address, but thank you both very much for that support, and thank you for helping to keep the whole operation running very good. And moving on to our next one, we have a 5 from Alex Burleton, who says, I've been watching before, Moscow Mike, and just don't have the finances to do live chats and take one from the live chat.
And thank you for the support. And I want to make this clear. I don't want anyone to feel like they are pressured to help support this channel. Support helps us to run it. I have to say that because it is true, and we rely on viewer support. But if you are ever in a financial hard spot, or if you're just financially, kind of in a tough spot at all, you don't have to feel like you need to support this channel. It's kind of the whole premise of why this thing is free to watch. If you are in that position, I don't want you to feel like you have to support the channel. And even if you are in that position where you can support the channel, you don't have to. It's completely optional. And I don't want anyone to ever feel like they have to support the channel. The whole thing's voluntary. And if one day we don't get support to run the channel, it will eventually probably fizzle away because we will have to find some way to support ourselves. But that's something for a whole other time, and I don't want anyone to be stressed out and having to support the channel. I've always wanted to make that as clear as possible to everyone so that we all never have to feel that stressed out. I want y'all to sit down and enjoy this show and not have to worry about anything about it. And if you have the ability to support it, you can. And if you don't worry. It's totally fine. And I don't blame anyone who's never supported the channel. Like Pakatang, who's been here forever. I just saw him earlier in the live chat. He said, I've never really been in the financial position to support this channel, but I've always watched and hit the like button and everything. And that's totally fine. I think that's amazing, really. And Pakatang is one of those one of those example viewers where it's like, he's been here forever. He's a channel legend. We know him through and through, just like any super chatter like BC Skyman or Mark, the incompetent drone operator. And, it's totally fine that he does not support it. We don't put a mark against him for it or bump him up a notch above Super Chatters for it. He is a Lee Spring Army soldier like every other. And I just got to thank you so much for the support tonight. And I got to thank you for being a longtime member of the Lee Spring Army and being here with us each and every day as we continue to cover the war. And that's really all I can ask of anyone who watches the channel. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. Don't feel any pressure, because in that, I don't know if I'm reading it wrong, but in that super chat, it sounds like you're feeling a little pressure. Don't feel any pressure, because you are a member of this Lee Spring Army, whether you support it or not, and you are as equal and as valuable to me as any other member is. And so thank you so much once again, and let's get to that live chat.
All right, and the live chat question goes to Pakatang, who says, why doesn't Russia show pictures of the fuselage of Prigozhin's plane, and could it reveal that it was a bomb and not a SAM?
I think that's exactly why they're not showing that plane, because we saw one picture of it, and there were clear shrapnel holes inside of the fuselage. So I would say they're probably not showing the pictures for that reason. I think that is clear at this point. And so thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, and thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running and being an indispensable member of this Lee Spring Army. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is a very generous $50 super chat from Phil the Sky, and thank you very much for that support. And he says, I've been subbed since right after the birth of the LSA and rarely catch live streams. I choose to donate to two young men dedicated to a show I've enjoyed for so long, and you put in the work with good intentions, and you earn the support and ignore the haters. And thank you very much, Phil, for the vote of confidence and also the kind words. I really do appreciate it.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Phil the Sky. And also, thank you for filling the sky with the little balloons on the super chat. And also, it's so cool to know. We've had so many people tonight saying that they've been subbed pretty much since the inception of the channel being a Ukraine war channel. And I gotta thank you so much for supporting us and helping us to keep this thing running. And it's so cool to know that people have enjoyed this thing for a long time, for getting support. That's one thing that's always big to me is just like, I can't end the stream. Like, even if I get tired, sometimes, you know, in the back of my head, you know, it's like one of those silly thoughts where you think, oh man, I'm so tired, maybe not run a stream tonight. But so many of y'all have been enjoying this, and we've all pretty much been here each and every night. I feel terrible not running a stream, and I gotta run it. And then also, I don't know what to do when we're just having a free night, so it's gotta run. But I've got to thank you so much for all the kind words and saying that we put in the work with good intentions. We try our best. Every single night I come on here, and it's been the same to me mentally as it has been since the start of the war, since I was just doing this to try and help out a friend that I have over there and tell him where the Russians were. I've kind of had the same mindset ever since then, although it's changed so much. I went from just talking to a small group of people, maybe like 10 people, to now tonight there were 7,400 of y'all on, and sometimes we've had up to 20,000 people on here at one time. So it's completely changed in its premise, but to me, it still feels the same as when I was doing it at the start. And, you know, I don't know. Honest intentions or not, you know, we've been running this thing the same way since the beginning. And if it was honest enough right at the beginning, it must be honest enough right now. But still, thank you so much for the kind words. And thank you for saying that we earn support. I regardless whether we have to get support to run the channel or not, I always feel like we never... you know, it's weird to say because, like, we have to have support to run the channel, but at the same time, I'm always a little critical, and I always feel like we don't earn the support, but I do thank you so much for the kind words as well, and thank you for saying to ignore the haters, because we try our best, but it's always a little obnoxious because it's a never-ending thing. You know, we will try and drop it, and then that person will bring it up. Like, for some reason, we were brought up on their Twitter, like, 3 days ago for some odd reason, just out of the blue, and that's how it goes. We can just drop it and leave it alone. And then this one guy, he'll just go out of his way in a month of silence to just go at us again and then paint himself as the victim if we respond. But still, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And seriously, though, like, here's the thing. I don't usually say or ask for stuff like this because really, the truth is, it's none of our business. But since the individual is such an advocate for transparency, we would ask, or I would, that he release his YouTube 1099 tax form, because YouTube issues that to each and every YouTuber, and it's none of our business, but since he is such an advocate, if he would release it, that would put basically his money where his mouth is at that point. But I think you'll find out that he's probably not going to do that for a very obvious reason, and that would prove my point. But anyways, moving on from that, just a side note right there, because I know some of the folks are watching. And moving on to our next super chat, we have a $10 donation from Power Ant. We also have a 10 from Monsieur Gaston once again, who says,
hey!
F that, take my money. And thank you both.
And thank you to both of y'all so much for the support. And sadly, Monsieur Gaston, even if we wanted to refuse it, because when people say that, like, take my money, my, like, actual inclination is like, no, I like, want to throw it back. We actually have no control over that. They don't allow us to refund a super chat when we receive it on YouTube. I honestly feel like that's kind of messed up, but, you know, it's how YouTube runs, so I guess we have to take it. But still, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Rick, who puts in a 10 and says, I saw Prigozhin pumping gas at racetrack in Nashville. He was driving a white new Ford pickup with dealer plates.
Nah, that's just that's just some redneck, man. Like, that's no Prigozhin. Some of them look like him. But still, I'm just kidding, by the way. Rednecks are great people. Also hillbillies too. But still, thank you so much for the support, Rick Time. And thank you so much for sharing with us another location of the Priggy Boy. We're going to be looking for Priggy Boy. Maybe he'll show up in Birmingham sometime, but who knows? But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is a $10 donation from Richard Eric Gibson. And he said, shout out from Coleman, Alabama. Hey. And from the one person up here that supports Ukraine and doesn't think it's a giant scam. And that seems to be the MO in Alabama, is pretty much everyone thinks it's a scam for some reason. There's only a small group of folks, probably maybe I would guess 10 or 20% in the state, that thinks Ukraine support is important, and the rest are very, very, very much against it. So very unusual to see some folks from Alabama that are for it. So big shout out to you. And Enforcer, what say you?
I haven't actually had that experience at all. It's largely to me, like the majority of the people I talk to, they support Ukraine. Like, you know, hell,
Not
even
me.
well, even in some places where you would think they wouldn't support Ukraine, they do, and have had friends that have gone over there. Like, I actually know, I think 2 people in Birmingham that have actually had friends join the Foreign Legion and fight in Ukraine for a while. So I actually haven't had that experience at all. For me, it seems like a decent amount of the state supports Ukraine, and then another part of it, they're not a big fan of it at all. But you know, that's just kind of the normal thing with America. But still, thank you for shouting out Coleman. It is the rest stop in between Birmingham and Huntsville for most people. But still, Coleman's a pretty neat place. It is like really the rest stop in between Birmingham and Huntsville, and it also has that Ave Maria Grotto thing that apparently is some kind of an attraction. I've never been there, but people have always talked about visiting it, and maybe one day I will. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Richard, Eric, and let's see, I can't even read Richard, Eric Gibson, and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, thank you for being a Lee Spring Army viewer from, I guess, the headquarters of the Lee Spring Army, which is Alabama. And, you know, a lot of people are going to be like, Alabama, isn't that full of stupid people? Yeah, you're listening to one right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Simon Condon, who puts in a 5 and says, free the A-10s, and can I get a Bamu snort for the Warthogs and Slav Ukraine and LSA?
And Bamu! And thank you so much for the support. I hope that's the sound you're looking for. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Tom Ray, who puts in a 5 and says, in honor of Juice, and may he become the next ghost of Ukrainian skies.
And thank you so much for the support. And hopefully Juice will be remembered for a long time. I feel like folks like him should be remembered, and I feel like there should always be a huge initiative to remember those who laid down their lives in defense of their country and for the betterment of the nation. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that Juice is remembered for a long time. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have another 20 from Troy Wilson, and he says, remember, he is a chef. He might just end up at Five Guys in your local town, LOL.
Oh man, he might end up at McDonald's listening to that stupid fryer in the background. You know, like constantly, like you hear that stupid thing every time you go in there. It makes sitting at McDonald's completely unenjoyable. But anyways, McDonald's food is kind of meh anyways, at least around here. But yeah, he might end up in a Five Guys. He's going to be sitting there, Shoyo! I brought me and my guys to make a Five Guys restaurant, please. There's 5 of us, exactly. You know, it works out. But still, thank you so much for the support, Troy. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for helping this thing to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a 5 from Badger Resistance, who says, give Ukraine A-10s, and Ukraine's tactical ingenuity will turn then into F-35s.
Oh, I bet. Like, one thing that we have seen is that the Ukrainians can always pimp a ride really well, no matter what it is. And I have a feeling they would probably find a way to make the A-10 effective. So yeah, why not? I mean, let's just give it to them. Let's just give them like 10 of them at first. Let's see what happens. If something good comes of it, send more. If nothing good comes of it, well, it wasn't really anything lost anyways. We were retiring them. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, Badger Resistance. So you keep on resisting. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to CanBuy7XI, who puts in a 5 and says, please make the Enforcer mixtape playlist.
And thank you so much for the support. I actually thought people wouldn't ask for that, but it seems like a lot of y'all like the song. And I'll tell y'all something. Like, this is something I don't really tell a lot of people. I listen to songs that nobody else listens to. Like, and they're so stupid. Like, On the Square, if y'all know that song, it's kind of like an American marching song. And I'm not into cadence like things like hey-oh, hey-oh. I'm not into that. I'm like into old like marching songs and like folk songs and stuff like that. But like I listen to stuff like On the Square, which I've been listening to recently and stuff like that. And I never really tell anyone that. So when people say, what kind of music do you listen to? I usually just tell them, oh, I don't listen to any music, you know, or something like that. And then they think I'm a weirdo, because I think they would think I'm more of a weirdo if they heard what kind of music I am listening to. But if y'all want a mixtape, if y'all want a playlist more so, like to actually like call it what it will be, I could make a playlist. We could put it on the channel so that way you could listen to all the songs I listen to. Because they're mostly folk songs or older military songs from history. But if you want one, we'll see about it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that fairly well. And the lights just flickered above my head like we got a power surge. That freaked me out for a minute. Yeah. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to inconsistent user data, who puts in a 5 and says, ring, ring. Let's see, whose voice is this? Mr. Putin, the hot potatoes you ordered should be in Moscow by 11 p.m. Wait, I didn't order anything. Secretary? Nah. Shoigu!
Where the hell is the super chat? You put that in again? I'm just going to scroll to read it. Because I was like, what is that? Let's see. Which one is it, Matthew?
Damn, I just feel like I got roasted slightly,
no.
It's from inconsistent user data.
No, you're not getting roasted. It's just that one part was picked up really quietly on the mic, and I was like, I don't even know what he said. But
Mr. Putin, the hot potatoes you ordered should be in Moscow by 11 p.m.
Wait, he didn't order anything. Secretary? Nah. Shoigu! And so, thank you so much for the support. I had to reread that because Matthew's microphone hardly picked up part of it, and I was like, what the hell did he say? But thank you so much once again for the support, inconsistent user data, and I hope you enjoyed both of us reading that thing off one into the other. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mr. Buckaroonie, who puts in a 10 Australian and says 20.
Hey, thank you so much for the support, Mr. Buckaroonie. He threw in 10 smackaroos to say 20. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And I feel like we're at a football game, Matthew. We're about to be going, down 23, Oklahoma, 20, or something like that. But thank you once again. Hope that does address that fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Peter, who puts in a 5. Peter. And it said, I'm happy to support your sterling work. Keep it up.
And thank you so much, Peter, the horse is here, for helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help us to keep this work going. You help the stream to keep rolling. And so with that, thank you once again. Hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Simon Condon, who says, free the A10s, and can I get a... wait, well, I already saw that one a minute ago. I think I might have duplicated that. But if you did put in the second one, thank you very much, Simon. And the next one goes to Walter A. Lakota Jr., who puts in a 5 and says, aloha, Enforcer Matt in LSA, from OG Ellison Ocean.
Hey, it's Walter!
And I have 2 ship coins I mailed to you, and both of you can give them to someone on here.
Hey, that's a really cool idea. I would like to do that. And thank you so much for the support, Walter. And also, thank you for the ship coins you sent to us a long time ago. We still have them. I actually have mine up on on one of those bookcase shelves that was in the podcast set. And I got to thank you so much once again, Walter, because you are the OG Ellison Bosun. And I got to thank you so much once again for supporting this channel tonight. And also, offering up some ship coins to some other folks. That would be cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And why? That's it. Why? But anyways, if y'all saw the live chat, y'all know what was up with that. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Richard Jepson, who puts in a 3. And thank you very much, Richard, as well for that support. And we have a 2 from Cody D362, who says, Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraine. And thank you so much to all of y'all for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And moving on to our live chat questions. Up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. We have Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, and Paul Schultz. They said that tonight's Morse reads, Ukraine is achieving a huge breakthrough today. Slava Ukraine, long live the LSA, and Slava LSA.
And hit it, Matthew. That's the sound of...
That's the sound of money.
Money! And y'all hit that right on the nail, right out of the park. Y'all got the Morse code message correct again. And I gotta thank y'all for doing that. Like, it doesn't... Like, the Morse code message has been around since, I think, day 80. And every single day, except for I think 1 or 2 of them, it's been deciphered every single time. And I got to thank y'all for doing that because it's so cool to always have y'all deciphering Morse code messages. And to be honest with y'all, we've been doing this for so long, I'm running out of Morse code message ideas. But with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Thank y'all for doing that once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and Trapaholics. We're moving on to our next one, which goes to a Wanderin, who says, people keep passing off that mutiny plane crash as Prigozhin plane. Does this help Russian propaganda?
Yes, it does, because it's mispropagating footage. It's taking footage from a different area and trying to apply it to this, and it makes the crash look different. It makes the plane look like it makes the whole crash look completely different. That's the thing about it. You have to use the right footage for the right crash. If you watch the original private jet footage, you saw it tumbling out of the sky. The vertical stabilizer had been sheared off. One of the wings also was ripped off as well. The thing had been shredded to pieces. There's no way you can explain that. Like Matthew, how in the world would you explain, oh yeah, the aircraft had a mechanical failure, and because of this one mechanical failure, the right wing sheared off and the vertical stabilizer sheared off as well, completely?
I've only heard of that one time. If y'all watch Air Disasters, well, like that's a horrifying show if you're about to fly, by the way. But I've only seen that happen one time with a plane that was operated by Chalks down near the Bahamas, and it's literally because they allowed the plane to go into such disrepair that the wing literally just fell off the plane, which is the only time I've ever heard that. And this is a relatively new private jet, so I really doubt that's going to happen.
And yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it can't happen, and especially on two different control surfaces, the vertical stabilizer and the wing. Like both of them at the same time, it's like that's just impossible. Like for both of them to fail. Only one of them would have needed to have failed, but both of them did. And the only thing connected to the plane when it crashed, like the fuselage, was one wing. That was it. And so as far as that goes, it's just too bizarre. Like, you know, when you actually see the crash footage, it's just too bizarre. And you also see that giant smoke plume that shows where a missile appears to have exploded behind the plane. You don't see that in the other footage of the plane that got shot down by Wagner near Lipetsk during the coup. You don't see that stuff, but you do see it in the real video. And so it is helping out Russian propaganda for that video to be spread around. The real one needs to be spread around instead. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, due to time constraints, because this stream has actually been marathon length compared to our normal ones, we're going to answer this live chat here from George A. And then we're going to answer 3 more live chat questions and round out tonight's stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this super chat goes to George A, who puts in a $20 donation and says, if I go and die, my life insurance lapses. Going to Ukraine is a destiny and not a vacation. Use a fabulous bully pulpit. Slava to y'all, American heroes.
And thank you so much for the support, George A. And also, if people want to travel to Ukraine, I want there to be a clear differentiation. I think there should be an exception to the rule that I say for me, because this rule is for me and not for thee. I'm not going to Ukraine unless if I can fill up a schedule with things to do for 72 hours minimum. Like if I'm there for 3 days, I need to be doing things every waking hour to continue to help Ukraine. Interviews to publish to the internet, meetings with people that are doing something for the war effort, helping out fundraisers. I can't, if I went to Ukraine, I would feel guilty if I didn't spend every single minute doing something for them. I would feel like I was absolute garbage, because this is what I do every day, and then going to Ukraine where it's actually happening and then treating it like a trip would just seem messed up. That's to me. But if y'all wanted to go, I would highly support that. I would back y'all up 100% going. Y'all are going to be helping to support local economies, and in y'all's way is one of the best ways to help out. But I don't think it is for me, because I would be using my time poorly compared to how we've usually been helping out Ukraine. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support, George A. And thank you so much for the kind words as well and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are now going to answer this next super chat, and then we'll get to the last 3 live chats of the night.
All right, this one goes to Mr. Buckaroony, who puts in a 10 and says, I'll have another go, lads. And were you able to confirm if a Ukrainian soldier was beheaded? Absolutely putrid. And if true, that will only enrage the Ukrainians and make them fight harder. And cheers.
And thank you so much for the support, Mr. Buckaroony, and helping the channel keep on running. Of course, a little bit more of a morbid topic. I haven't heard of a Ukrainian soldier being beheaded lately. We have seen, however, a Ukrainian soldier castrated, and then his throat was rendered unusable. I can't say the actual terms on YouTube because they might get all sensitive about it. But we have seen horrendous things done to Ukrainian captives throughout the war, but I haven't heard of a beheading recently. Fortunately, there has been no news about that on our end. But I will be looking around for it after stream and seeing if something like that has happened, and for some reason it's just slipped through our radar. But with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that very well. And if that did happen, that is always a polarizing event for the soldiery and makes them fight even harder, and usually makes them have less mercy on the Russians, which usually ends up better in the battlefield situation. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again. And we are now on to the 3rd live chat of the night.
This one goes to Mike, who says, how many miles until the Ukrainian army reaches the railroad from Russia?
Let's see. I think it's not that far, because Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. It's not far at all. It's 12 miles because that railroad passes through Tokmak. So they are not far at all. 12 more miles and they will overrun the railroad. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Very quick answer, actually. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Bone Master, who says, how do we know they don't have tunnels going to the trench for resupply? And it seems like they've had lots of time.
They have had lots of time, but tunneling is very, very difficult to do, especially over big links and over massive areas. That's why whenever you hear about tunnels, they're not that big. Like El Chapo's like cartel tunnels. Like in reality, they're not that big. Usually they were pretty short and they would connect to a sewer system or something, and then they would use those tunnels. But you'd never really see, like you could not see the Russians create hundreds of miles of tunnels in the span that they had, because while they're not going like subterranean into like hard bedrock or anything and tunneling through there, they would be tunneling through the dirt. And to do that, it would be very difficult. It would also be very difficult to keep the soil above you intact and not have it cave in on you. And so the chances of them having tunnels enough to reinforce or supply the entire Surovikin line would be largely unrealistic, but not out of the question. Also, it would be very noticeable as well because there would be a lot of ballast that they would be tunneling out of these tunnels, and then they would have to put it somewhere on the surface, so you wouldn't be able to hide the tunneling too well. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much to the $20 super chat from Troy Wilson with no comment. There was no comment, but the support does help us to keep this thing running. I got to thank you so much, Troy, because I think that's like your 5th or 6th super chat of the night, isn't it, Matthew?
I believe so.
And I got to thank you, Troy, because you are helping us out massively tonight. So thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Dave Oz, who says, not sure if you covered this, but did you read that the Wagner Cemetery in Nikolaivka has been destroyed?
Yes, we actually did cover that. They were wiping them out of existence over there. And actually, I think it's abhorrent. I know that those Wagner guys are criminals, yes. But the Russians gave them that cemetery, and now they're erasing them from history with the rest of the Wagner. And, and regardless of what they did, the Russian government did endorse them at a time, and so it's really messed up for them to do that. Really, honestly, I think it's messed up to mess with anyone's graves at all. That's just my thing. It seems like bad like juju. I guess is the best way for me to say it. Yeah, like it just seems terrible. Like I don't like the idea of messing with people's graves. They are dead. Leave it alone. Just don't touch the stuff. I don't believe in ghosts or anything, but I just think it's just immoral and abhorrent to mess with graves. Just leave them be. That's my aspect on it. And so what you're seeing the Russian. Yeah, that jujube. But still, thank you so much for asking that question, because I have seen that, and I believe it's absolutely despicable. Although I'm not a big fan of the Wagner. I have to make that clear. While I think the idea of desecrating graves and making them disappear is despicable, I also don't agree with the Wagner either. So, it's not on the grounds of I like the Wagner. It's on the grounds of I just think desecrating graves whatsoever is pretty messed up. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure having all of y'all here with us tonight as we cover this news. And at the peak, there were 7.4 thousand of y'all online tonight. We are entirely honored to have each and every single one of y'all here. And while there were 7.4 thousand of y'all, which means that we can't really get to talk and know each and every one of y'all, I know that each and every one of y'all are as special and unique to this Lee Spring Army as any other one. As much as people like J.D. Mako or Dilly Dillinger or Enforcer for President, all of y'all have the same backgrounds and stories as them, and all of y'all add the same value and the same richness to the Lee Spring Army as the other. And we've been entirely honored to have every single one of y'all here with us tonight. And so, thank you all so much once again. And if y'all enjoyed, please make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow we'll be running our Sunday fundraiser. So if you subscribe and hit the bell button, you'll be notified when that stream goes live, and we'll be picking a nonprofit that's been helping out in Ukraine to help support them, so that way they can keep their work going. If you also want to, you can hit the like. We have like 2,500 likes right now on the stream, and you can also hit the comment button as well after this thing becomes a video in a minute, because that also helps to promote the stream and get it out to more folks, so that way they can watch this news and maybe even see that they like this channel or not. You give those folks that chance. But with that, Thank you all so much once again for watching tonight. We've been entirely honored by each and every one of y'all, and we will see you all tomorrow at Sunday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and to also help out the folks that we cover the news on each and every day. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army never dies.
And good night, LSA. See you all tomorrow on the fundraiser, and Slava Ukraine, and peep the Twitter.
The leaves